Jernigan with Authority Figure, and tell us a little bit about what that is, Jeremy.
Authority Figure is a business that I started with my brother, and we are in the business of creating companion products for new and existing toy lines. So, companion board game tabletop combat strategy experiences for existing and upcoming toy lines.
Oh, that's awesome.
Mm-hmm.
Cool.
Thank
All
you.
right. Well, welcome. Very happy for you to be here. We have mutual friends in our social circles, and you had reached out to me and said you wanted to do Terminator 2. It is your favorite movie, right?
If not my favorite from the action genre, it's definitely in the top 5 for sure.
Right on. And I absolutely love this one too because it's one of the finest action movies ever made. And yeah, when you reached out, I was like, you know what? Let's roll with that. When did you first see this movie? Give us a little background on that.
So this came out in 91, if I'm not mistaken. So I was born in 82, so I was 9 when it came out, and I saw it immediately when it came to, or when it got to Blockbuster. My mom went off to do some kind of like bunco thing that she was like in a bunco club with her friends, and so my dad went and rented it as soon as it was available. So that was the first time.
I actually saw this movie. I was at summer camp in 1991. It opened on July 3rd, and I was at summer camp. It was the only time I ever got to go to summer camp. My mom was the camp nurse.
Okay.
A camp for rich kids, basically. And the only way that she would have ever been able to afford it was the way she did it. And that she worked as the camp nurse for no money so that I could go to camp because I always wanted to. And that was kind of like a gift that she gave to me. And it was great. It was an awesome time. I still have a lot of memories from it and got to do a lot of things for the first time. I went, rock climbing and whitewater rafting and all that kind of stuff. And I got to go with her into the city. It was about 20 miles away from I think it was Asheville, North Carolina. And we went and she took me shopping with her. I was the only kid that got to do that because, nobody else's mom or dad worked there.
Right.
And all the other kids were like pissed off too. But we went to the mall and the only thing I remember buying was a shit ton of comic books. And because I was really into Marvel at the time. And of course, they had the movie theater there, and I was like, oh my God, Terminator 2's out. Like, I'd been at camp for 2 weeks, so I didn't even know. And we went and saw it. And so I saw this opening weekend. It was a religious experience for me at that age. I was born in 77, so I was 13 when this movie came out.
Okay. So yeah, it was a really, really interesting thing because I had my dad had seen it in theaters. I think he went with one of his buddies. Really, really into the movie. Next thing you know, I had the action figures for a rated R movie that I had never seen before. But they were great. Except for Arnie's pink undershirt thing that was going on there. I'm not sure what that was all about. The John Connor figure with the dirt bike and everything. It was a cool toy line. I wish I had some context for how to play with the figures, but I'm not going to look a gift horse in the mouth. So. But yeah, once I finally did have the opportunity to see the movie, I was pretty impressed.
Yeah. Oh yeah. It was a game changer.
There was a very solid binding verbal contract between my father and I before he hit play on that. Your mother does not know that you saw this. Your mother does not know I brought this home. If she does find out, all of those Terminator toys are coming out of your room. All that. So yeah, it was pretty cool.
He had you over a barrel with the secrecy on that.
Oh yeah,
yeah. This movie was something, and I grew up. I was about the same age you were when you saw this. I was a little bit younger when I saw the first Terminator.
Okay.
And I saw it on HBO. That movie, to me, that was the first movie I ever remember seeing as a kid where it's like, I'm not supposed to be watching this. Like, this is a grown-up movie. And, this is, like, legit scary. I had nightmares for months about, unstoppable robots.
Mm-hmm.
And I remember, I think it was my older brother that I was just like, well, why can't they just reason with it? Why can't they just tell it like, look, you don't have to kill me. I won't have a kid, or whatever. And I was just trying to reason.
Did you not hear Reese's monologue in the car from the first one? You can't reason with it.
Yeah. That's the part that shook me to my core where he's like, it doesn't think, it doesn't feel,
Yeah.
it can't be bargained with, and it
Yeah.
absolutely will not stop
Yeah.
ever until you are dead. And just how emphatic he was about it. And it was just like,
Yeah.
okay, shit just got real. So when this movie was announced, I always wondered, I was like, oh, I wonder if they'll ever make a sequel. Never happened. And then all of a sudden, I'm sitting there watching TV one day, and they're like, oh, we're behind the set on Entertainment Tonight of Terminator 2. And I was like, what the fuck? Like,
Yeah.
stop everything.
There was such a, and of course, I wasn't old enough to observe these things at the time, but being an adult now and looking back at the history of it, what that was like a 7-year gap in between those two films. So that was interesting. And then to come back with a sequel that was, that the first one was a very, very low budget experience, and to come back with, an actual budget, like a tent pole blockbuster action flick is pretty cool.
It hadn't really happened before, but that's what made it kind of a game changer and a trendsetter. But also, the first movie, I think the budget was $6 million.
Yeah.
And the budget for Terminator 2 was $102 million, which it was the most expensive movie ever made at that time, including all the money that they had to pay for the script or the rights to the movie.
Right.
Which is a whole nother story. And that's why it took 7 years, is because Hemdale was one of the producers on the original.
Yep.
And James Cameron was the other half. Well, he got divorced in '89 and lost. He signed over his rights to that to his ex-wife for $1 in the.
I know that story. Yeah.
And then they turned around and then they bought it. They bought out her half for $5 million, and then they bought the other $10 million to Hemdale to buy the rest of it. So then they were like, okay, we just spent $15 million just buying the rights to make this movie.
Yeah, that was the cost of admission, like just to
get in the room. Yep.
Yeah.
So that was unprecedented at the time. But the first Terminator is it's one of the best action movies ever made, especially because of how cheap it was. Terminator 2 is what happens when you have a movie being made by that director with those stars in that universe that has $100 million more to spend. And it's just as good. Both of them work so well. And for a long time, I loved Terminator more than Terminator 2 because it was more, we're talking about deep sci-fi here, but it was more plausible to me. And that's one of my gripes with Terminator 2, but even though I love it, is the liquid metal being a machine.
Yeah, and having, a complex machine like that, but still like it's, I don't know. I don't get it.
It's one of those things when you get too far into it, it's like, just stop thinking about it, because there's no way that would ever work. But
I guess
it's fun as hell to watch.
Right. And then, well, the other thing was that, the reason why they never wear any clothes when they make their time jumps is because, like, you can't send non-organic things back, evidently. But the T-1000 is just these liquid metal, like at least the T-800 was, he had that endoskeleton, but he was a cyborg, right? He had living tissue on the outside, which was shielding the endoskeleton. So, okay, that's plausible, I guess, for the time jump. But this thing is just essentially mercury that's coming back. So
yeah, and that breaks its own rules, because in the first one, she's like, well, why didn't they just send a bomb back or something like that? And he's like, nothing dead can go. And that's why he had to have that living tissue over his endoskeleton. Well, that just goes out the window when you send back a liquid mercury man.
Right.
And it's like, so
it's the first of many contradictions that I'm sure we're going to start digging into the further we get in here.
we on this podcast, we dive right into the movies.
It starts with a big contradiction, and then it ends with another one. I'm sure we're thinking of the same one, but yeah, we'll get there when we get there.
There's a huge problem at the end of this as far as sewing up all the loose ends. Okay, so this movie cost $102 million. How much money did this movie make worldwide?
I don't have the answer to that.
$520 million.
It's a good return on investment.
Yeah, it made Carolco flush with cash. That's a whole nother story that we'll get to, because that studio went out of business 5 years later.
Yeah.
Even though they made some really profitable movies. They are a kind of a cautionary tale of how to bet on the wrong horse with certain movies. But the movie was directed and written, of course, by James Cameron. And I'm always amazed. I know this, but I'm always amazed by this. He has only made a handful of movies,
Hmm.
and it kind of breaks my brain a little bit. And I guess it's quality over quantity, but it's kind of like, and two of those movies are in this universe.
Yeah.
He did, of course, Terminator, Terminator 2, Aliens, The Abyss, True Lies, Titanic, and Avatar. And that's pretty much it. I mean, he did Piranha 2, The Spawning, but nobody gives a shit. I don't even think he gives a shit.
No, but most likely he does not.
They locked him out of the editing room on that movie. Like they
Really?
literally like they trespassed him from having anything to do with finishing that movie. Like he got fired and they were like, nope, taking your keys, fuck off.
I had no
And
idea.
yeah, so he disowns that movie. And of course the stars are Arnold Schwarzenegger,
Mhm.
who was coming off. I mean, he had already done so many movies. He'd done Conan, The Terminator, Commando, Predator, Total Recall, Red Heat. So he was, I would say this is peak, top of the hill Arnold Schwarzenegger. This is him at his absolute power
I,
and popularity
I,
wise.
yeah, I couldn't agree more with that statement. This is pinnacle Arnie, back in the day.
And it was kind of right before he had True Lies after this. He had a couple of Jingle All the Way and a couple other things, but
When
this
was
was,
Kindergarten Cop?
that was the year before this.
Was it? Okay. All right.
That was 90. After this, he did The Last Action
Yep.
Hero,
Yep.
and
That's what.
that's really what kind of shot the hole in the boat. After that, he was becoming more and more of a punchline into the late 90s.
Yeah, and then Eraser happened,
Yeah.
and that was like, ugh. So,
Yeah. And Eraser was I mean, that was the litmus test for he's getting too old for this shit.
right.
And he wasn't believable with a much younger co-star, and there's supposed to be like a whole love thing there, and it was just like, ugh.
Yeah.
Like, yeah, it just didn't. That was kind of Eraser. I feel like was his last hurrah for being a viable action star.
Yeah.
And Linda Hamilton came back, reprising her role as Sarah Connor. She had done the original Terminator and the TV show Beauty and the Beast, which was very popular for a couple of years. But that's
Oh
really
yeah, that was Ron Perlman, wasn't it? Yep, I remember that.
Ron Perlman is a lion man, basically.
Yeah, there's something I want to get into a little bit later when we reach the point in the movie where we see Sarah for the first time. But I think that saying Linda Hamilton is reprising that role as Sarah Connor, it's not. That is not the same person. But I definitely want to get into that later.
Yeah, well, she's very transformed, and that was one of her demands, was that she wanted Sarah to be a damaged, kind of a mentally ill person because of what she had been through, but also because she knew what was coming.
Yeah.
And how that would fuck anybody up, to know
Yeah.
that you're the mother of the savior of the future.
No
No
pressure.
pressure. No big deal.
Yeah.
But all of her character trajectory really, it fits that it would lead to that she was on the run with her infant son, trying to train him how to be a commando and how to hotwire cars and all this shit,
And ATMs.
and ATMs.
Hotwire ATMs as well.
And she was shacking up with any dude that they could learn from,
Yeah.
which I think there's a whole allegory of her being a bad mother and him kind of being neglected, I guess, as a byproduct of that. There's a lot of family allegory in this, and with the Terminator, the T-800 being like the surrogate father that was better than any human father figure that he ever had. So there's a lot of themes in that, and there's some really kind of poignant parts too. But she worked out like a beast to get in this shape.
I could be mistaken. You may know the story as well, but there was, while she was undergoing the training regimen to get her physically where she was for the movie, there's that line, no fate but what we make, and then but when they're training for this, it was no fat but what we make. And then it seems like something I read or heard one time.
That tracks. Yeah, she was in really good shape. I feel like when this movie came out, that's all anybody could talk about was, oh my God, did you see how like ripped that chick was? Like, she was badass.
Yeah.
And not since Ripley and Aliens did we have a female character that was that physically imposing, at least not in a big budget Hollywood movie. I mean, I can look back at like some bullshit straight to VHS action movies where there were some badasses.
Sure.
as far as females go. But I mean, she was, when she's one hand pump cocking that shotgun, and I mean, all of that, everybody was just like, whoa, like that chick had muscles,
Yeah.
And that just wasn't that prevalent in Hollywood at the time. Edward Furlong. This isn't the first time I'm going to talk about him.
Yeah, I gotta say he's the weakest part of this whole thing.
He really is, and he wasn't an actor. In his defense, they discovered him at a Boys and Girls Club. He was 13 years old in this movie, playing a 10-year-old.
Mm-hmm.
I do have a large problem with that because he was not 10 years old in this movie.
Right.
10-year-olds don't ride around all over town and to the mall by themselves on dirt bikes.
No.
10-year-olds don't know how to use ATM pin pad hacking machines. Not even today they don't know how to do that shit.
Right.
Let alone in 1991.
I guess I just never done the math on that and come to that conclusion that he was supposed to be 10 as far as the timeline is concerned. I just always went into it with the assumption that he's just some rowdy early, like 13, 14, 15-year-old.
That would have made more sense, and that's what they should have done.
Sure.
If you go back to the beginning of the movie when Robert Patrick kills the cop and assumes his form or takes his car or whatever, he gets it in the car and he kind of rubs his hand on the computer like, hey, what's this? And then he like starts doing it. And when he pulls up John Connor, you can see right there it says 10 years old.
Does it really? Yeah. I've missed that so many times. I
paused it. I was like, I rewound it. I was like, wait, how fucking old? And it was like foster parents, Todd and Janelle, whatever. And it was like 10 years old.
Yeah. And I've never noticed that. I watched this again in preparation less than 48 hours ago. And I'm going to say it's probably somewhere in the 20s, like the 25th, 26th time that I've seen this movie. Never noticed that.
And how old, let me ask you this.
Okay.
I'm assuming you don't know this, but if you do, just tell me to shut up. How old is Sarah Connor in this movie?
27.
29.
She's 29. Okay.
Linda Hamilton was almost 35, and she looks 35. To be fair, she looks 35 in this movie. So that means that she would have been 18 years old in the first Terminator.
Early 20s in the first one.
She was mid 20s. Yeah, I mean mid to late. She was like 27, I guess.
Well, I'm saying the age of the character, not Linda Hamilton herself.
I see. I would put them on a parallel because she looked 25, 27 in that first one, which would track for her being 34, 35 in this one.
Okay.
But for her to be 18 years old, like Sarah Connor in that first movie, can you see her in high school? Like,
no,
it just doesn't track to me. It's like, no.
Yeah, right. That's a good point. Yeah, I've never thought about the age of the characters before. But
that one was jarring because it says her name too when he pulls up Sarah Connor, and I was like, no. But anyway, the Edward Furlong, he's very squeaky in this movie because of going through puberty. I'm assuming.
Can't fault him for that.
We've all been there.
Look, I can't fault him for what was happening with his body at the time. And then there is a production schedule. Obviously, had I been directing this or something, I'd been say, hey, let's give him a month. You know what I mean? Let's film some other stuff that we can do without him. Give him a month and let's see if this kind of smooths itself out with his voice. Because every time that he does go into another register, well, not every time, but it happens a lot. When he goes to shout, you hear that crack. Yeah, you can't do it.
I will say, I mean, he looked good. He looked like a 13-year-old. Well, he didn't look like a 10-year-old kid. No. But he looked like 13-year-olds looked in 1991. He looked like what he was supposed to. He's my age. So like when I watched this, I was a 13-year-old.
Wow.
And so 13-year-old girls, when this movie came out, were like, oh my God, Edward Furlong is so cute. And so if that's what they were looking for, I mean, they did a good job physically casting this movie. Right. Even though the kid doesn't know how to run either. He kind of bounds around and like, oh no, not good. And he's kind of, just kind of bouncing around. And some of his line delivery too is, you can't say affirmative or some shit like that.
Yeah. Well, there's this one part where he turns into Cartman from South Park, when they're after Sarah had her nightmare and had carved no fate into the picnic table, and then so John and Arnie are, you know, they're figuring out where she went to and all this stuff, and she's he says this line, and he's like no fate, but we make for ourselves, you know, and like she's gonna blow him away, like
she's gonna blow him away.
it's really bad.
I never caught that, but yeah, when he said that too, I was watching it and I turned to April, my girlfriend, and I like paused it and I was like,
we gotta stop him. He's gonna blow him away.
No fate, but we make for ourselves.
Yeah, they definitely could have used a few more takes. I mean, film isn't that fucking expensive.
Yeah.
Like,
but you know, the thing is that what if that was the best one? Like, what if there had been like 6 or 7 takes of that scene, and that was the best one?
It may have been. I mean,
yeah.
it truly may have been. And that's the problem when you cast a kid that looks the part but isn't an actor. And I've said this on previous episodes. When a child actor is a good actor, it's there's a multiplier there where it's like, holy shit, like that's noteworthy because so many kid actors are terrible. So it's when you find a good child actor, that's a diamond, you know?
Yeah.
And he just wasn't that. And honestly, I mean, he got better as his career went on, but I feel like his career was completely predicated on being in this film. Lately, I don't know if you've seen him, but he's a bit of a train wreck.
Yeah. There's like a picture that came up with like he and Ron Jeremy were hanging out. It was just like, oh man.
Yeah, Ron Jeremy looked better than him, I think.
Okay.
Very few people I would ever say that about. Let's talk about Robert Patrick.
Sure.
What do you feel about him in this film?
Perfect. They're perfectly cast. I'm not glad that Billy Idol got hurt. I'm not glad that anybody gets hurt, but what it gave us was, I think, a much more believable antagonist for the movie. I guess Skynet is the real antagonist, but anyway, the bad guy for this particular movie, he's great. He stares right through you.
I think he was fantastic. The little things that I noticed about him, the way he runs, it was almost like he ran. It didn't look like he was breathing when he ran.
Yeah.
When he's in a few different scenes where he's shooting, no blinking. So just a lot of little things he did to inform his performance. And the way he kind of like turned his head, it was very animalistic.
Yeah, it was a predator scanning, scanning for prey. I was very impressed with how he maintained the lack of character in that character. By no facial expressions whatsoever until the very end, until he gets frozen. I think that's the first time when he's speaking, or I'm sorry, the first time not speaking that he actually opens his mouth.
Yeah.
Because when he turns his hands into those claws, and opens up the elevator door and stuff, he's got that same blank stare. Yeah, it's very for a kid Jeremy was very unsettled by the entire thing.
Well, and I love how angular and kind of pointy his face was, and his hairdo and his jawline and everything. It looked like
a cat,
like a knife running around. And but he had those predator eyes, like you said, where he was just like a hawk. I do find fault in a little bit of some of the colloquialism that he had, like when he's talking to the foster parents, and he's like, "Have you seen John?" And then they're like, "Oh, he's a good-looking boy." Like he's got a little bit of a southern twang there, and I always kind of that bothered me because I'm like, like he should be more like he's a good-looking boy, like just a little bit more like vacant.
Well, I don't. The T-1000s are infiltrator units the same way that the 800s are, so maybe adding a little bit of something to his speech can make him more relatable.
That's true. Yeah. And I mean, he does kind of almost laugh a little bit when they're like, "Yeah, big guy on a motorcycle," and he's like, "Oh, I wouldn't worry about him."
Yeah,
kind of. Yeah, menacing, but also it's kind of like, "Oh, wait, I kind of forgot that he's a robot for a second." A lot like Edward Furlong, though, I feel like his career has always been predicated on this role.
Mm-hmm.
And it's a shame because he's actually a very good actor. And if you've ever seen Fire in the Sky, the alien abduction movie, he's really good in that.
I don't know that one. I remember he popped up again later on down the road in the X-Files, if I'm not mistaken.
He was John Doggett, yeah.
Yeah, and then he was what was that? He was in a couple of rockumentaries, right? Like he was the dad, he was everybody's dad for a while, wasn't he? Wasn't there a movie about Elvis where he played the dad in that?
Oh, Walk the Line. He was Johnny Cash's dad.
Sorry. My mistake. Yeah,
he was Johnny Cash's dad in that. He before this film, he was only in a couple of like Italian post-apocalyptic like action movies, like like Equalizer 2000 and like bullshit like that.
Yeah.
And he hadn't done anything noteworthy. And then he was in Die Hard Part 2 as one of the terrorists. Then he did this movie. Then he didn't do a whole lot. There wasn't an immediate spin-off for him. He cameoed as this character in like Wayne's World and Last Action Hero as the T-1000. So I feel like he kind of got pigeonholed as that. But he did do a fun, I think it was 1994. He did a fun little action movie called Zero Tolerance. It's an obscure one, but I'm gonna do it on the podcast here eventually.
Okay.
It's better than it should be, but it's still 90s cheese, like straight to video.
Okay, I'm completely unfamiliar with that, but I'm intrigued now.
I'm Captain Obscure when it comes to this crap. So
okay.
And I rented that movie back in the day based solely on like, hey, that's the Terminator 1000, so I'm gonna watch this.
Yeah.
He was also the villain in the Double Dragon live action film.
Okay.
Shuko Shigato or something like that. He played Whitewash, plays a Japanese ninja villain or something, and
oh man,
he's pretty bad in that. But
what year was that?
That was 94.
Yeah, I have to say that had to be the 90s. Like,
yeah, it's real. But he was not the worst part of that movie. But that movie's dumb as fuck.
I do remember the Double Dragon cartoon and toy line. Those were kind of cool.
Yeah, the cartoon was not as bad as the movie.
Oh no, it was fine.
The movie's real dumb. Alyssa Milano's in that too. But he went on to a pretty good career from the end of the 90s through, like, he was in Copland. He was in some stuff in the early 2000s. He played Peacemaker's dad in the Peacemaker show.
I did see that. But I saw.
He makes a very easy to hate bad guy. Let's see. And of course, the score was done by Brad Fiedel, who did the score for the original. I think collectively, because there's a lot of similarities from the first score and this one, both of them are just top notch. I mean, you can't get a better score, especially for what these were for. I think they're pitch perfect.
Yeah, the title theme, it has such a mechanical sound to it. It's almost like you can almost hear someone just beating an anvil with a hammer. That bum 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 bum. Yeah, it sets the mood for the movie very, very well.
Yeah, it's like if Blue Man Group was in hell.
Yeah, and something I always thought too. Are you a wrestling fan at all? Pro wrestling?
I'm not. I was when I was a kid in the '80s.
Okay,
like the first WrestleMania and stuff like that. But kind of once the veil got lifted and I realized it was fake, I was kind of like, I'm out.
It's predetermined outcome. People do get hurt for real, but fixed and not fake, right? There was a wrestler by the name of Goldberg that was with the WCW, and his ring entrance theme was extremely similar, like probably similar to the point where they played it for their lawyer and was like, hey, can they sue us for this? And they're like, change it up, just get rid of that note right there, and then you'll probably be fine. Very, very similar, and it's all I could ever hear every time Goldberg was coming out to crush somebody.
Quite a stretch from Hulk Hogan's, what was it, Rick Derringer?
I am a real American.
I am a real American. Fight for the rights. Fight for your life.
Yeah.
But I mean, that music works for a wrestler. I mean, I don't care who you are. When you hear that theme, it makes you want to grab a machine gun and go kill some fucking robots. Of course, the soundtrack, they used Guns N' Roses, You Could Be Mine.
There was a music video for that, wasn't there?
There was, and it was directed by Stan Winston.
Okay. Yeah, but there's also some cameos from the actors in that as well, aren't there?
No, they mostly use footage. It's Guns N' Roses at a concert,
Okay.
Kind of like a warehouse concert kind of thing. They intercut with scenes from the movie, like action scenes.
Okay.
And the ending of the video, the premise is that Schwarzenegger, the T-800 pulls up and he's hunting Guns N' Roses. And then they all walk out of the venue and they're like in the back alley and he like examines them. Then I can't remember what the joke is at the end, but it's all like waste of ammo or something like that. And they're all like standing there like, what? And he's all like, and he like high fives them or something. I don't remember exactly what happens, but there's some cheese ball thing that happens at the end.
It sounds pretty bad. There's probably it sounds pretty bad.
But for a lot of people, that was the extended trailer, as most music videos were back then, because you got to see all these scenes from the movie. So we got people really hyped for that film.
Yeah, I remember I used to watch that stupid Bryan Adams video anytime I could see it, just to get extra footage for Robin Hood.
Yeah, that song was unstoppable that same year.
God, it was.
Well, that year, Guns N' Roses, lest we not forget that they released 2 albums simultaneously, Use Your Illusion 1 and Use Your Illusion 2.
Yeah.
Use Your Illusion 2.
Tongue twister.
Lose Your Illusion. And that You Could Be Mine was on part 2, I believe.
Yeah.
But you had to buy both albums if you wanted all the songs. And it was kind of a genius move, and it was kind of a weird flex. And I don't know if any band has ever done that since. It was a big deal that year. But the strength of this movie helped sell those albums.
Mm-hmm.
So the movie cold opens on the nuclear graveyard scene with Linda Hamilton's voiceover narration. This is our first introduction to just how blue this movie is.
Right.
The entire movie is pretty much shot with a blue gel, and James Cameron has a penchant for doing this. If you watch The Abyss, everything's blue, but they're underwater, so it kind of makes more sense.
Sure.
This one, you understand why he did it, because it's a very cold, very futuristic, very, kind of that menacing, cool blue.
It sets the tone of everything, right? If you don't want to have too many warm colors, and you don't want this future to feel inviting with a warm palette. Right, you want to keep it cold and blue like that. So I completely understand what he was doing there.
Yeah, definitely. So we're on the nuclear graveyard. The T-800 endoskeleton smashes the skull.
Yeah.
You see all the purple lasers going off, and you're immediately taken back to that future war that we just got a little bit of a glimpse of in the first one.
Yeah, so in the scenes from Terminator 1, when we look back in time, they're usually one of them was a dream sequence from Kyle Reese, wasn't it?
They all were, I think.
Okay. But yeah, this one you get to see it, and man, the work that they were doing, the practical effects with those miniatures that they were doing there, I mean, absolutely fantastic. Like I said, I watched it again within the last 48 hours. It holds up. Yeah, I'm going to stray a little bit off topic. Every time I watch this and I see the lasers and I hear the sound effects and I'm looking at the vehicles flying around, I can never stop thinking about what would have happened if they had made G.I. Joe in 1991, right, with this type of budget, because the sound of those lasers and, the vehicles and the track vehicles on the ground and stuff flying around, if a studio would have taken it seriously and gave it a budget like this, what kind of live action G.I. Joe flick could we have had in 1991 with the technology that they had?
Yeah, absolutely. And I mean, it was there. It wasn't there for $25 million.
Sure. Yeah.
It was there for $102 million.
Yeah.
But again, that was, like we said earlier, that was unprecedented. So, I mean, they spent more on that opening scene than they did on the entire first movie. It was more than $6 million just for that future war scene. And
you can see it though. You can see it.
Even the rear projection, they do a little bit of rear projection, which is a very older style of special effect. And they used it heavily in the first Terminator and in Aliens. When you see the dropship crash.
Yep.
It's rear. You can tell it's rear projection, and it looks a little bit cheesy. In this one, I could tell it was rear projection, but I'm like, damn, that looks good. Like,
yeah, with stop motion T-800s in the back as well, if I'm not mistaken. So yeah, but I mean, overall, the blend of the two, they fit together seamlessly. It's fantastic opening sequence. Yeah, fantastic.
Finally, get to see John Connor, and to me, it's the best version of John Connor because he doesn't say anything.
Yeah.
He's just got the scars on his face, and he looks like a guy you'd be like, yeah, I'm following that guy. Like that guy knows how to smash some fucking machines.
Yeah, he's he looks like he's in command. They did a fantastic job, and it's the best thing. Like you said, that's the best thing about that iteration of John Connor is that he had nothing to say. Because that's usually where that character goes wrong, no matter who the actor is.
Yeah. What if he would have taken down those binoculars and been like,
"Your favorite what we need?
Your favorite we make for ourselves.
We gotta go get mine. I gotta see the Terminator back in time." Kyle,
Kyle,
Reese.
you got to go back in time and bang my mom, Kyle.
I'm surprised the South Park guys haven't clued in on this.
Yeah.
We just wrote an episode for them. You're welcome,
Right.
Matt. But yeah, the hunter killers, the flying ones, as well as the treaded hunter killer robots were really badass. I love that whole opening scene. We do get a little bit more voiceover from Linda Hamilton's character talking about John Connor and plans and how the Terminators work, basically, and the fact that they sent 2 Terminators back. One of them was in 1984. The other one was 10 years later, whenever she says. And then that kind of sets up like, oh, okay, so there's another Terminator that came back, but she doesn't say anything about the Protector T-800 going back.
Right.
So when it cuts from the future war to present day, we get the time bubble appearance of Arnold. So I feel like there was a little bit, so for anybody that didn't know that Arnold was the good guy in this movie going into it, you see that and then you're like, oh shit, there's the bad guy, there's the Terminator.
4, this is the bad guy.
Okay. That's what it was. I know she makes a mention of like who's going to get to him first or
Right.
hopefully, whatever. So, but yeah, when he first appears, you don't immediately know that he's the good guy.
No.
And I kind of love that ambiguity. And when the time bubble disappears, it has cut into the back corner of a semi-trailer.
Yep.
And I thought that was a beautiful touch. And that's a perfect example of like, hey, we've got $102 million. I couldn't do that with the first movie because we didn't have the budget, but now we can. After the T-800 arrives, he's naked, of course.
Right.
And he walks into the Corral bar, and they've got Dwight Yoakam playing Guitars and Cadillacs on the radio, or on the jukebox rather.
Told me how to hurt me away, cry myself to sleep.
Guitars and Cadillacs.
Yeah.
And I feel like they did a really good job establishing kind of the hole in the wall, dirty bar.
Yeah.
And the patrons that were all there,
and staff, patrons and staff were definitely some. What's the term I'm looking for?
Salt of the earth.
Yeah, sure. Yeah, we'll go with that.
Well, and I like how every woman, the servers and every woman that was in the bar, as soon as they turn around and see him, they're all like, "Oh,
yeah." There's that one in particular. She's like, "Oh,"
yeah,
it's like real weird.
Like surprised, and then she's like, "Oh," you're like, "I'm about it."
Yeah, again, a product of its time.
Oh yeah, but he of course walks in, and what does he say to he's standing around looking for a guy that fits his measurements.
I need your clothes, your boots, and your motorcycle.
And of course the guy's like, oh yeah, no, that's not happening.
Yeah,
you forgot to say please.
And
he puts out the cigar on his chest, and of course then he realizes like, oh shit, he's not even flinching. And so he beats up the guys at the bar. Kind of a neat little scene. There's the breaking the pool stick on him, and I love that when he grabs that guy and kind of yokes him across the room.
The one that put the cigar, the original guy.
I can't remember which guy, but he grabs one guy and like one hand, and just like
yeah. So he takes that guy and he yeets him into the kitchen, and he lands on the grill there.
I don't know how they did that, because I watched that and I'm like, I think he landed on a hot fucking stove.
Yeah,
steam coming off his hands.
Yeah.
Shit.
Yeah, man, that guy got it rough.
Yeah, that was an eye opener for him. But and then he takes the one guy and breaks his arm, and then stabs him in the shoulder with the
pins him down. Yeah, and then it also adds to the notion that we have in our heads as the audience that Arnie is the bad guy again. He's the same killer that he was in the first one.
Well, because he's doing the same thing. I mean,
he's acting the same way.
Yeah, I'm fucking these guys up. I'm taking their clothes, and this is what I need. Inadvertently, he doesn't go there to get weapons, but he ends up with 2 weapons.
Right.
And really, the only two weapons he uses for the beginning of this movie. He gets the 1911 pistol from the guy that he eats into the kitchen. Then when he goes to leave, and of course, Bad to the Bone plays as he walks out the door.
Why wouldn't it?
James Cameron did not want that scene in the movie. The other writer of the movie wanted it. And James Cameron decided at the last minute or whatever to, you know what, we'll keep it in. It establishes that he's not totally the bad guy, that there's a little bit of humor and where he like reaches up and like takes the sunglasses and does the whole thing and it kind of fit.
Yeah.
But then the bartender comes out with a shotgun, with the lever action sawed off shotgun.
Yeah.
The old timey, I think it's like a 1903 or something like that.
I have no idea what model firearm that is, to be honest with you. I really don't.
It's an antiquated shotgun. I mean, they didn't make lever action shotguns for a reason. It looked cool when he was doing the Rooster Cogburn.
Sure, when he was spinning it.
But it looked cool on the motorcycle, and it allows you to ride the bike and kind of, because if he had a pump action, that wouldn't have worked. So he's outfitted and armed.
Mm-hmm.
Right after that scene, the T-1000 appears in its time bubble, immediately kills the cop that shows up in response to an electrical emergency or something. I don't.
Yeah.
Whatever, dude. We need a cop here. There's an electrical disturbance.
Yeah, but so we see him have an engagement with that police officer, but you never see him use his ability, right? It looks like he just socked him in the stomach. Like you never see anything protruding through that police officer.
Yeah.
So it looks like he knocked the wind out of him really bad or something, and then stole his car.
Yeah, well, and they do that. I think is kind of they're sandbagging a little bit because they don't
for
tell
sure
you what he can do.
For sure.
But here's my logic leap on that. So he can mimic whatever he touches.
Right.
So he shows up as Robert Patrick. He
Right.
mimics. Now, did he take that cop's clothes off and put them on? And if he did that, then whenever he first morphs or whatever, then he'd have to take those off. Like
or why wouldn't he take on the appearance of that police officer as an infiltrator unit, right? And then now he has access to the police station and whatever resources are there as well. The only way I can forgive it.
They should have had it show up as a simulacrum, just a kind of a liquid person or whatever.
Sure.
Because they don't know what to have him look like. And Robert Patrick should have showed up and been like, yeah, I'm responding to this. Woohoo. And then he goes and looks and then kills him. And then, okay, now he's Robert Patrick and he's the bad guy.
Easy fix.
But to me, that cleans up that rough edge. He gets in the car. He uses the 1991 supercomputer that all cops had in their cars and looks up John Connor, his targets, finds out what the address is where he lives. So he finds out where John Connor is, and he sets off on his quest to find him. And then immediately we cut to John Connor at his foster parents' house, Todd and Janelle, and he's working on his dirt bike in the garage with his best friend, only friend, Butnick from Salute Your Shorts, played by Danny Cooksey.
God, he's just
rocker kid. I guess that's what they were going for there.
Yeah, I mean, the two of them together, it's like if you had an AI scan a bunch of magazines from 1991 and told it to create two people, that's what you would get, with John Connor with the hair hanging in his face and he's got the flannel on and everything, just real product of the time.
He had the swoopy hair, and then the other kid had the greaseball mullet.
Sure, yeah. With Guns N' Roses blaring in the background as they're working on this motorcycle.
And they established that John's foster parents are kind of dicks.
Yeah.
That's actually a line. His friend is like, your foster parents are kind of dicks, huh? And really, they're not really being dicks. They're just kind of like, hey, dude, clean your room. Like, quit being
she has the expectation that he's supposed to maintain the space that they've allotted him, which I think is reasonable.
Yeah.
But not when you're the future of the human race. You don't have time for that shit.
Well, and it's funny how the narrative kind of sheds light on these things where it's like, hey, quit messing with John. He doesn't have to clean his room. And it's like, I mean, they're just kind of being normal people,
Yeah.
They're not the bad guys.
Yeah, expecting what's still a child to have responsibilities and have chores. Yeah. Horrible.
How dare they?
They had it coming.
I feel like you're almost supposed to be like, yeah, they got theirs, like when they get killed, and it's like, no, it's still pretty awful.
Yeah. And so we're introduced to his stepmother. Were you going to get into that as well?
Yeah,
The actors.
Okay. Jeanette Goldstein, yeah, but she was Vasquez in Aliens.
Mm-hmm. It's not very often that the sequel is better than the original, but definitely in situations like this, Terminator 2, Empire Strikes Back, and I would definitely say that I personally enjoy Aliens more than I enjoy Alien.
Absolutely. I mean, people could argue that they're both equally good quality-wise, but
Sure.
The first Alien is a haunted house movie with a monster. The second Aliens, is a full-on action.
Sure, yeah, it's more like a xenomorph snuff film, actually. I mean, they are tearing through these things. But yeah, Aliens was a ton of fun. So two of my favorite sequels of all time, and then you have her in there. Michael Biehn as well. No, he was. Yeah,
Michael Biehn was in a flashback scene that was cut, which I feel like it's a shame that got cut because it was kind of I feel like it played into some of Sarah's psychosis a little bit and her, what she had going on mentally.
Right.
And kind of how haunted she was by, only having that short amount of time with him too. Yeah. So, and then she tells him to clean his room. He's all like, screw you. And then he goes to leave. And then the husband goes out and he's like, get in there and clean your room. Quit being a jerk. And he's like, she's not my mom, Tad.
Yeah.
And so then they're like, we're out of here.
Yeah. Incoherent screeching. Yeah.
We're going to go to the mall. I'm going to go steal from an ATM.
So then they ride off on the motorcycle.
Yep.
So then from there, we cut to Pescadero Mental Hospital, where Sarah Connor is being held.
The return of Dr. It's Silverman.
Yeah, played by Earl Bowen.
And he makes sure that those the staff that's accompanying him through the hallway, in case they didn't see the first Terminator movie, he's getting them up to speed on Sarah Connor.
Well, and I do like the way they do that though, because he's explaining her as almost like a case study,
right? Yeah,
and
hey, you gotta see this, right?
Yeah.
Like,
so you meet this crazy bitch, like he's got that kind of like she believes this that a robot from the future came back to kill her and her unborn son,
and a robot from the future, of course, right? And it's really he has a condescending tone about the entire thing, but he thinks that she's a crazy person, but it's very, very interesting character. And then we see Sarah for the first time. You talk about a transformation. That is not the same character that was in the first Terminator. It's not her. And you see her. She has her bed flipped up, knocking out these pull-ups like it's nothing. She's I mean, just looking at her body, she's probably 5, maybe 7% body fat tops, right? I mean, just toned and lean, and really has the appearance of an individual that has purposefully weaponized their body, right? Like purposefully trying to achieve peak performance because she knows that anything less than that is a guaranteed death sentence up against one of these machines. And then, you see her for the first time, she's just like staring straight through you,
Well, she does that over-the-shoulder look where she's like, "Hello, Dr. Silverman."
Yeah.
Me,
yeah.
It's like, act sinister.
Yeah.
No, go bigger.
And then we get the I used to be an adventurer until I took an arrow to the knee. We get that.
Yeah, and Dr. Silverman, he's he's smarmy and he's you're supposed to look at him and he's a villain. I mean, he's an asshole, but
sure,
he's a bit part actor. He's been in a ton of stuff too, and he kind of always plays himself as here's him as a quirky father, here's him as a bank teller, here's him as a psychiatrist. So he always kind of has that same delivery.
He was the Jason Sudeikis of the early 90s, just the same person every time.
Yeah, he was fairly good in this though, because I love when she goes to escape and he's got a broken arm and he's all kind of he's just really affected by it.
I think, but my favorite part of this is when he still has the protective cap from this syringe in his mouth, and then the T-1000 comes through the bars. It just shoots to him real quick, and it just drops down. Great timing on that little clip right there. Fantastic work.
He has this little interaction with her, and some of the other interns look in, and she's all like, hey, trying to hiss at him basically.
Yeah.
And so when he goes to leave, he tells the orderly, like, yeah, make sure you're giving her Thorazine because I don't like when they mess with their rooms like that.
Oh, you
Just,
mean Bubbles from Trailer Park Boys?
yeah. The guy with the Coke bottle glasses and the gun hanging over his belt.
Yeah.
Yeah, that guy, and he has another villainizing scene later on.
Yeah, he really does.
And I just to touch on that, and I don't want to spend a whole lot of time on it, but they kind of imply that he's assaulting her,
abusing, definitely abusing the patients there.
Yeah, when he does the whole face lick when he thinks that she's taken her drugs.
Yeah.
And she's still got him under her tongue, and
Mhm.
she's, pretending to be catatonic. So I like to think that, not that I wish that on any character, even fictional, but so that when she broom handles him right in the fucking jaw,
Jesus, that is a brutal freaking shot, man.
it really gives that weight when she's just fuck you, like some instant justice there.
Yeah.
And,
she gets his what is that? That's a nightstick, like a police baton type of deal. Yeah, man, the way she moves as well, just I guess the economy of motion that she has as she's moving through there, it just, I don't know how to describe it.
She to me in that movie, she looks like a kangaroo, like the way she just kind of hops around, and she's got such a fluid quality. Yeah.
But she
flips that baton where it's like, she had a lot of military training as well as martial arts training for this movie from a gentleman named Uziel Gal. I don't know if you know who that is.
What's the first name?
Uziel Gal.
No,
I
don't know who that is.
Israeli.
So I was gonna go with like Israeli, like counter terror or something.
Ex-Israeli special forces, and he is the guy that created the Uzi.
Okay, well there you go.
So named after him, that was his nickname. And Uziel Gal created the Uzi submachine gun, but he trained with her on how to handle weapons and how to do like just that little baton flip.
Mm-hmm.
So that kind of shows you how important those guys are to action movies like this.
Mm-hmm.
I wish he would have worked with John Connor on how to run.
You could tell when you're looking at it, as far as like discipline with firearms manipulation is concerned. She looks great with handguns. She looks absolutely great with handguns. When she starts firing stuff from the hip later on down, that always it gets me, but whatever. Like I said, forgivable. It's forgivable.
Yeah, it always kind of bothers me that she goes full auto pretty much right off the bat when she's trying to take out Dyson. Like, that was a really dumb idea.
I guess we'll get to that scene too. It's really important stuff from there.
So the T-1000 pulls up to the foster parents' house and talks to Janelle and Todd, asks them, is John here? Do you know where he is?
Oh, he's not here. What has he done now? Oh, that kid.
Yeah, they're making the assumption that he's involved in some type of felonious activity already.
Well, and I feel like that kind of just adds more into the whole like, oh, they're jerks, they suck,
right? Yeah,
but I mean, they're probably not wrong.
And that's the thing about it is that I don't know. You can paint them in a negative light if you would like to, but honestly, it seems like two people who have taken on this responsibility of kind of getting this kid as far removed from the system as they possibly can and try to provide something stable for him. But that's not the life he's trying to lead. So it's they have a very jaded kind of, okay, what's he done now type of attitude towards the situation.
Well, and they're not wrong, because as soon as we cut from that, it's him and his buddy at an ATM stealing money.
Right?
So
to go play Afterburner.
But then you're supposed to see that as a viewer and be like, yeah, they just stole money because he's a good guy, and it's like, really? No. Then we cut from them to the T-1000 basically finding out like, okay, he left with his friend, and so the T-1000 goes and starts talking to neighborhood kids, I guess, and showing the picture that the foster parents give to him, and that's his first visual clue as to what John looks like. And then so we cut away. John and his friend are at an ATM stealing money with his magical pin hacking machine.
Yeah, some kind of pin hacking device. If I'm not mistaken, the NECA figure, the ultimate John Connor figure, comes with it. I have that figure on display right now, but I don't have all the accessories displayed with it. But yeah, I believe that comes in the box too.
Well, James Cameron had a penchant for liking techie things, and going back to Aliens, when they get up to the door on the refinery or whatever, when they're on LV 426, Hudson, it's like, oh, we can't get in the door. Hudson, run a bypass, and he basically hooks up one of these kind of. It's not the same thing, but it's very similar, and it's like, oh, I can get us in this door. Beep boop beep boop beep.
Yeah.
Okay, we're in.
Yeah.
You know, and it's like James Cameron kind of has that propensity for that, I guess.
Yeah, it's a device that you would expect to see in like a Mission Impossible movie or something like that. Like their techie support guy would have something like that.
But not a 10-year-old in 1991.
Yeah, it's a pretty advanced piece of equipment.
Yeah.
For a 10-year-old to have, and then they get $300 worth of ill-begotten gains, and then take it straight to the arcade.
Yeah, let's go get some pizzas and woo.
Yeah, we're totally teenagers.
You
can play Afterburner.
And so from there, they cut back to the hospital where Sarah is meeting with Dr. Silverman, and she's trying to get moved to light security so that she can see her son.
Right.
And they basically deny her on that because they don't believe that she's any better. I feel like they should have finished that scene, but they cut away from it pretty quick.
Which was an accurate assessment by the good doctor.
It's
a very accurate assessment.
He's good at what he does. I mean,
Sure,
I'll give him that. Yeah. So once again, you're supposed to look at him and go, "You son of a bitch! Why don't you move her? John needs her." You know. And it's like, if I was him, I'd be like, "No, bitch, you're staying right where you're at."
Yeah.
I know what you're up to. You know?
Yeah, because next thing you know, he's got a syringe full of Drano in his neck,
and a broken arm,
to boot. Things went downhill pretty far, pretty fast for him.
So they briefly touch on this scene of her asking to get transferred.
Yep.
And then they cut from that to Cyberdyne. That's the first time that we're taken to that location. And you're at Cyberdyne in the lab, and we're introduced to Miles Dyson.
Right. We are introduced to him by the Wish.com Keanu Reeves. I don't know who that actor is. But
that is Joe Rambo 42. Yeah, he just pops up and he's like, "Yeah, like I'm kind of aloof and I just started here. Will you show it to me?"
Yeah.
And so Miles Dyson is played by Joe Morton. Really good actor. Yeah, does the best dying breathing I've ever seen in a movie. And so he's obviously like a guy at the lab. This whole scene flows like a Michael Bay scene where it's like everybody's on a dolly and it's just like, we're moving, and now we're walking in here and we're talking, and all right.
Yeah.
But they basically established that, hey, can I see it? Like they have something Terminator related.
Yeah.
Is the illusion, and Miles tells him, or Dyson, I'm just going to call him Dyson from here on out. Dyson tells him, I asked that question once. You know what they told me? Don't ask.
Mm-hmm.
That's another callback to Aliens when they're on the refinery at the beginning, and the guy's like, "Hey, what do we do?" And the guy's like, "You know what? I've learned not to ask because the answer is always don't ask."
Yeah.
So he's kind of circling back to what he knows.
Burke is the only one that knows what's going on.
Yeah, but they reveal as he goes into the vault that they still have the CPU chip from the original T-800 and his arm after he got smashed. And that's what they've been reverse engineering and getting a lot of their technological advances from. And so there's, it's foreshadowing basically saying like, oh, that's why the future still happened.
Mm-hmm.
So that's the loose end that they have to tie up basically. So we go back from that scene, they go right back to the mental hospital, and Sarah attacks Silverman when he says, "No, we're not going to move you, and you're just kind of trying to game us." So she attacks him and jumps in, "Oh, you son of a bitch, I'll fucking kill you."
Mm-hmm.
So they restrain her, and then they isolate her in her room, and then they cut right back away from that to the T-800 is riding around the neighborhood on his motorcycle, and he sees John out of the corner of his eye.
Mm-hmm.
And he's like, there he is. So he follows him to the mall. At the same time, the T-1000 stops and is talking to the neighborhood girls and is like, "Have you know John Connor?
Have you seen John?
Have you seen this boy?"
Yeah.
Of course, they're like, "He was just here. I think he went to the mall." And so now the T-1000 is en route to the mall, so they're all kind of converging. And as he's walking around the mall, and he asks dirty mullet redhead kid,
Yeah.
have you seen this guy? Do you know him? And he's like, no, I don't know him. So then he goes and he warns John, hey, there's this cop scoping for you, man. Just split. Using that early 90s lingo.
Yeah.
Just split, man. He's scoping for
you. John is in the afterburner machine, right?
Yes.
And then Butnick comes in, kicks him out. Kicks him out and takes over, you know what I mean? And I would have asked him for a quarter, honestly, because
I would ask him for $1. I think that thing cost $1.
Yeah, it's like you stole my game, but okay, fine, whatever. So yeah, John gets to running, and then he's going through the delivery area,
the back room hallways.
Yeah.
He runs through there, and then T-1000 pursues him, and so he's kind of, I gotta get away.
Yep.
And as he's running, he sees the T-800 Arnold.
Right. Yeah.
Walking right towards him, and then of course is like, oh shit!
T-800 pulls a shotgun out of a box of roses. Yeah, he starts popping the T-1000 and those awesome squibs that they had for that. So behind the scenes stuff shows that it was actually like pneumatic, I think. It would go open and it would flower out like that. Really, really cool practical stuff.
So they have the showdown in the backroom hallway where he's plugging that T-1000, and that's the first time that you really see like, oh wait, like he's not just a robot, like he's made out of like malleable liquid. I love that the whole scene when they grab each other and it's kind of like, you're strong too, and I'm strong. Yeah, they just kind of
better slam you into something. The only thing that I don't like about that scene, and it's one of my, I don't know, I have a few nitpicks, right? The sounds for the firearms in this movie are 98% fantastic, but there's this weird sound that comes out that's almost associated like in movies with a weapon that has a sound suppressor on it.
Yep.
It's like ding, 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 like really weird sound as it's that shot where Arnold has turned around to shield John, down that corridor, and he's just taking him in the back.
I've never heard that sound come out of a firearm in any other movie. Oh. And it's like you said, it sounds like a suppressed, like a low caliber suppressed, like a suppressed 22 or something, but it's
something like that. Yeah.
It's very like pew, 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 pew.
Yeah.
And not only that, but they're in a fucking hallway.
Right.
Concrete hallway. That's not what any gun would sound like, let alone a Beretta 9.2.
Yeah.
Shooting what we would have to assume is 9mm.
Yeah, I mean, which is a really snappy round to begin with. So yeah, it's going to be pretty uncomfortable, without any type of hearing protection in there. But that sound really bothered me.
Definitely the worst Foley. It's the worst sound design in this entire movie. There's also a scene later on when they're in the elevator in the mental hospital, and it's on top of the elevator, and it's like doing the pin cushion thing where it's sticking the blades down in. They're in an elevator.
Yeah.
Shooting a 12 gauge shotgun and a 1911 45. The first thing I would have said to John is cover your fucking ears.
Yeah.
Because this is going to fucking ruin your hearing.
Yeah. It's coming from someone who's discharged the firearm in a very confined space before, without hearing protection. All you hear is for about the next 8 hours. Maybe like 6 to 8 hours. So it's an action movie. It's fine. It's
maybe that's why John Connor doesn't say anything in the future war, is that he has tinnitus. And they wrestle out into the mall. That gives John a little bit of time to escape and get the bike. So he gives chase. He almost catches up to John. He gets the motorcycle to crank at the very last possible second. He peels out of the parking garage. He's right behind him.
Pursues on foot.
But he does that great chasing scene on foot where he's just like, Carl Lewis after him. And
you see him chopping right through the air. You can see the air moving around him. He's so aerodynamic.
But he's not breathing through his mouth when he's running.
It looks great. It maintains the illusion that this is a machine with the lack of facial expression, the lack of appearing to be winded after, sprinting, being at a dead sprint for that amount of time.
Well, and I thought it was a good change of pace for the Terminator too, because it's the first time you ever see a Terminator run. Because all through the first movie, Schwarzenegger is, that calculated, And even when he's walking fast, it's
he's a very large and imposing, but slow.
very calculated movements where it's just like kink, kink.
Yeah.
And I feel like that was to match the stop motion and the jerky kind of movements that they had to do with some of that. But
I didn't think about that, but you're probably right. You're probably right.
They had to kind of mimic that, because if he moved like a normal human, and then when they showed that, and it's all
yeah, at the end during the terror sequence, like when it turns into a horror film, then yep, I didn't think about that, but that's an excellent point.
John gets away from him. For the time being, the T-1000 steals a flat front Freightliner tow truck, and so he gives chase in the tow truck. And of course, the T-800 is right behind him on his motorcycle, and they head right towards the LA River.
Look, awesome spot. Like, as far as like coordinating that entire scene, genius, because it looks really cool. You don't have to coordinate as far as the production of the film is concerned to get the streets cleared out, for a certain amount of time. And then I'm sure it was probably easier for them to coordinate pyrotechnic and stuff in a place that's not usually inhabited by people.
Very often used setting. That same year, that same summer, in 1991, they used the LA River as well for Point Break. Climax of the scene where Keanu Reeves is chasing Patrick Swayze. Love this scene, though. This whole scene is the first big, other than the Future War, it's the first big action sequence, and just such a good chase. Every beat that it hits is just perfect. When he runs when he drives that tow truck off the ledge, and it just shows kind of how relentless he is. When it's like, oh, okay, there's my target. Like,
yeah, it's very like the mind of a machine, right? What's the shortest distance between 2 points? A straight fucking line. So I'm coming right over the top of this bridge.
Damage be damned.
Right.
We also get the first of the shotgun twirls, which I feel like is the whole purpose of that shotgun. So during the chase, towards the end of the chase, I guess, the truck crashes and blows up. I love the ignition of the battery cable swinging and hitting the pouring gas out of the tank.
Right, because look,
the car just crashes and then it's just like boom, instant fireball.
Did you forget you're in an action flick? Of course, it has to blow up, right?
Well, we knew it was going to blow up, but I love that just that little touch where it's like.
Right, when it hits diesel fuel, right, which has one of the highest flash points of any fuel out there.
So for the time being, they look back and they're like, okay, he's wrecked. We think we've stopped him at least slowed him down. And then they drive off, and then we see the T-1000 walk out of the flames.
Yep.
And it's the first time that we really see the full
Mercury effect.
Yeah, the Silver Surfer Mercury, like.
Yeah.
And then we see him turn into Robert Patrick.
Right.
So it's the first kind of full realization that we get of his abilities.
Yeah.
During their motorcycle ride, the T-800 explains to John, what he's doing there and the whole situation. And of course, John's all like,
wait, time out, stop. Yeah. You're a Terminator, right? No.
Yeah, and the only way to have that conversation is to pull over. There's no way you can continue to communicate while on the motorcycle, putting distance between you and the advanced killing machine.
So we get a little bit of brief overview from him, and he explains that he's mimetic polyalloy. And he's like,
what?
He's like, liquid metal.
Yeah.
They go from that to the payphone scene, calls to check on his foster parent. And Jeanette Goldstein answers the phone, and she's talking. She's chopping vegetables. Of course, it's the T-1000 pretending to her. And so he's gone back to the house and killed her, assumed her form, and making dinner, just acting like everything's cool. Here's my question. The husband was still alive.
Yeah.
What if he was like, foster kid's not around? You're looking pretty sexy chopping those vegetables.
Oh, yeah. I tried to have some mom and dad time while the foster kid's gone. That could have been interesting.
How far does the T-1000 go with his performance there?
Infiltration unit. I
mean, he's willing to chop some vegetables and make some beef stew. I don't know, man.
Make some beef stew. Is that a...
You might have had to take one for Skynet.
So Yeah, John wants to go home and talk about them, and then Arnie's like, he's like, negative. T1000 will definitely try to reacquire you there. I can't remember what John says, but then Arnie turns around and he's like, I would. You hear the dog going crazy in the background. Then we have what I thought was a really, really cool little trick. I thought that was a really cool piece of writing right there with the Wolfie question in order to figure out who he's actually speaking with on the phone, and then a callback to the first Terminator as well, where he was impersonating Sarah Connor's mom. That's pretty
it was
cool.
a good callback to that, where he's exactly trying to find out and kind of using all the tricks in its bag, but also it was a good callback that the dog was freaking out.
Yeah,
because they used German Shepherds and dogs in
that's
particular.
right. They're using to sniff out infiltration units in the future. Yep,
So
you're right. I didn't catch that. I'm so glad we're having this conversation, man.
Yeah, that's the first thing I thought too. And when I was rewatching it today, I'm like, I never thought about that, but that's why it's going nuts.
Oh, yeah, very good point. Very good point.
Good writing. I mean, like you said, that's solid script writing, especially when you're having that other movie to try to pull information from.
Mm-hmm.
The husband is all, trying to interfere with, he's asking dumb questions. And so hold on, let me switch this so I can.
Yeah, and makes it shish kebabs him, right, with the milk jug suspended in the air as well, right? Pretty cool.
Yeah, and I love that he's kind of pinned to the wall, but he's still kind of twitching.
Yeah, it's definitely severed the spinal cord, the nerve or the brain stem, right? And then the rest of the nerves are still figuring out that they're dead now. Really cool. That the eyes rolling back and everything. Very pretty disturbing for a 10-year-old to see.
He hangs up the phone. Your foster parents are dead. They know that the T1000 is there,
mm-hmm.
and they know that it doesn't know where they are. So they at least know that they're safe at that point.
Mm-hmm.
So they have their whole little, this whole scene, it serves its purpose, but it's really annoying to me. It's some of the most annoying that John is, where he's like, you can't go around killing people. You just can't.
Oh, you talking about after John Connor tricks those two good Samaritans into picking a fight with a fucking Terminator?
Yeah.
Those guys did nothing wrong.
Yeah.
They heard a kid screaming, with an adult over there, and then they do the right thing to come over and try to help this kid, and he's like,
"Get lost, bozo."
Yeah, you calling moi a dipshit, and then instigates this physical confrontation with these two good Samaritans who look like they just left Gold's Gym, but whatever. And with this cybernetic fucking killing machine from the future, right? I guess just because he's bored. It's a cringy scene.
Well, it's like a kid finding a loaded gun and being like, hey, I can do anything I want now. Like, Terminator. And yeah, it's pretty fucked up. And like he grabs the guy by his mullet and like picks him up.
Yeah.
And and he almost blows the dude away.
Yeah.
I get it that they're trying to establish that this Terminator is different. This Terminator can learn and he can be a better Terminator. But just the whole way that they go about it, it's like, ugh, like it really makes you hate that fucking kid.
Well, John Connor is the real villain of this story.
So from there they establish that his mom is in the hospital, in the mental hospital, and that they have to go rescue.
Right.
We cut from there back to the hospital with the cops talking to Sarah and explaining to her that his foster parents are dead. They're showing her pictures, and basically they show her like, oh shit, this T800 is back. And so she's acting completely nonplussed by it. But in her head, she's like, oh fuck, I got to get out of here.
Yeah, the gears are turning, right? She's planning the escape as they're talking to her.
Yep. And she steals the paperclip off the file that the cops have, and they put her back in her room. They chain her, they strap her down to the bed, and they put the buckles on her and everything. She spits the paperclip out, uses it to pick the lock, escapes from her bonds. That's after the creepy ass orderly like licks her face,
right?
I guess to see if she's faking it, or I don't know.
I have no idea. Yeah, it is a very disturbing scene, and you're supposed to not like that guy. I guess the implication is there that he's sexually abusing patients.
Yeah.
Right.
And James Cameron likes to make his villains very, very bad. So, I mean, I get why they did it. And it gets that guttural response from everybody where it's just like, ew. I hope he gets hit in the face with a broomstick.
Yeah, I hope he gets his face caved in roughly 90 seconds.
So John and the T-800 head to the mental hospital to break her out. He makes an oath to John to not kill him. And from then on, He doesn't kill any humans. So when they pull up and the security guard is there, he shoots him in the kneecaps. That becomes his go-to. I'm going to kill him. I'm going to shoot him in the fucking kneecaps.
Right.
So I'm going to maim them for life.
Yeah, they're just, I mean, they're going to hobble, right? But they're alive. Slightly degraded quality of life, but life nonetheless, right?
And so right around a little bit after they arrive, the T-1000 arrives, or it could be vice versa. I can't remember which one arrives first, but they get there within minutes of each other, it seems like.
I think the T-1000 gets there and then takes on the identity of that kind of portly police officer that's there.
Yeah, the security guard inside.
Right.
Yeah, he walks in.
It steps in him while he's in a puddle.
I think the T-1000 gets there first.
Yeah.
Because he walks in, so he has no problem getting past security. He walks into the receptionist or whatever and says, "I'm here to see Sarah Connor." And the lady's like, "You're a little late, aren't you? All the other guys have already been here."
Yeah.
And that's when he, like, as soon as she turns around, he disappears. So he's basically already infiltrated at that point. I feel like he gets there first, and then John and the T-800 show up.
Yeah. Yeah,
he spends a lot of time trying to, like, infiltrate.
Goes to the vending machines and then waits till he can assume another identity.
Yep.
And then we see that the first set of twins
Yeah.
In the movie that we're going to see right there.
That's the first time that we see the T-1000 be able to do that.
Mm-hmm.
We've seen him morph, but that's the first time that we've seen him literally like Mr. Fantastic onto the floor. And then as he's coming up, and it's got that black and white checkerboard, it looks so cool.
Yep.
So, and then the guy turns around, of course, and he's, you know, looking at the coffee poker thing, whatever, and he turns around, and he's all like, "Woo!"
Yeah.
It does the zoop, and
yeah, it gets the express service lobotomy in the mental ward, in the mental hospital.
And he does that kind of wiggle too, where he's all like pale and jiggling. Sarah escapes from her room, whacks the Johnny Creamy Hands orderly, who has come to check on her, and she sneaks up on him and takes that broken broomstick and feeds it to him.
Oh, Lester the Licker gets popped right across the nose with that broken handle, and it's like it's one of those things where the Foley and the way that they shot it just meet up perfectly, and it feels like there's a real impact right there, and it's just like automatic, like Mortal Kombat, you know, like blood come out. Fantastic. Absolutely fantastic.
Goes down the hallway, and she's basically just kind of trying to stalk her way out. Very calculated, though. I love that she hides, you know, before she just goes in front of windows. Like she's using the environment to try to kind of hide her escape.
That's what I was saying earlier about the economy of motion and what she's doing. She's being as efficient as she possibly can within that space, right? And then, you know, kind of going around windows and looking at corners and stuff. Definitely someone who's done this before, most likely running from law enforcement at some point in time. Well, I mean, she's in there because she blew up another office building, right? Or it was a computer manufacturing plant or something. So that's why she was in there to begin with.
Well, and she's tried to escape before, so she has a pretty good idea of the layout.
Yeah.
I mean, she knows which door to break the key off in, you know.
Yeah.
So she's got the great escape worked out in her head. While she's in the hallway, she comes around the corner, tosses her keys to the one guy, hits him, and then breaks Dr. Silverman's arm. And takes him as a hostage with the drain cleaner in the syringe. From there, she makes her way out with him as a hostage. She uses him to get away, and then she goes through the doors, and then she breaks off the key in that second door, so that buys her some time. She goes down the hallway and hits the elevator button. That's when
she's
T-800 comes out.
She's waiting on the elevator to come up, and then T-800 comes out, and she has a complete PTSD episode. Very good performance on her part. I really like how she's so terrified, and she's on the ground and trying to just put distance in between herself and the Terminator as fast as she can. And I think that the squeaking that they added to like the linoleum floor, you know, type of the surface that is right there as she's trying to get away was a nice touch. John comes out of the elevator second. I probably would have led with that, but it's fine. Instead of Arnie coming out first, maybe I would have came out. But and you know, trying to talk her down, and she's still visibly shaken.
Well, she runs down the hallway, and then that orderly, that, you know, they get through the door or whatever, and the heat tackles her, and kind of upends her, and then they fall on her, and they're like, "Yeah, hurry, hold her, so I can shoot her up and sedate her." They're doing that. They pay no attention to the T-800. Literally throws one guy through a window,
he yeets him right into the metal bars in that window, and it's so cool. I know that that's not real, right? But the way that it splayed out like that, like it was, he had thrown him in like bent metal.
He tosses him into the window with the wrought iron or whatever, the bars. He tosses the other guy through the window of the big slammer door, the fire door.
Yeah, yeah.
And I mean, breaks the window, and luckily that breakaway glass broke away because he could have cut himself in half.
Yeah.
And then the other guy, he just whaps him and then bounces him off the wall. And that guy's got like this big marshmallow kind of Beavis and Butthead head. And
It's like yeah, he does have this like light bulb shaped head and then like some kind of pompadour haircut like on top of this thing, which survives the impact somehow. You know, so he bounces his face off of that. That guy's done, lights out. And then that female with the cast on her arm comes in and weaponizes it, hits Arnie across the face, and then he mushes her. He doesn't hit her. He doesn't throw her.
Well, I love how far she slides too. It's like they've got her Crisco'd up, and she's just like, down the hallway. It's like she hits and then like skids, like she's on a fucking slip and slide. Like wee! Like they must have just waxed those floors.
It's Lester the Licker. It probably just got done. You know, on his janitorial rounds.
He got done with the buffer and was like, I gotta go lick me some inmates. I just love licking.
Old Salty Sarah down there.
So after that happens, then the T-1000 makes its way up to the bar door that she broke the key off in. And he, does his like phase through it where he's like, whoop. And when that happens, of course, Silverman's like,
the cap drop right there.
T-800 shoots him a few times with the shotgun, slows him down a little bit.
Mm-hmm.
They get into the elevator, and then as the doors close,
the doors barely close as the T-1000 bears down on them. The next thing you know, his hands come through. Not his hands, but they're in the shape of like a prying tool.
Well, they go in as like a sword, and then he draws them back to like crowbars.
That's right. Like, yeah, it starts opening it up, and then he takes that 12 gauge right to the face. Bam! It opens him wide up.
That's one of the more brutal earlier scenes in this movie too. Is whoa, like they fuck him up, but it's right back together.
It's not the first time that the T-800 is going to shoot him in the face at point blank.
So they're in the elevator. That buys him a little bit of time, and then he opens the doors again, jumps down, lands on top of the elevator, and starts, sending his sword arms into it. They start shooting their guns inside the elevator, and they end up in the parking garage where they steal a police car, and the T-1000 is right behind them, and it kind of does the blob gloop down into the elevator. And I like that because it adds a little bit of the, oh shit, like this thing can just like squeeze through holes and stuff, Yeah. So then there's the second parking garage chase where they're in reverse in the cop car.
The T-800 is firing that shotgun while driving in reverse out the window.
So they finally turn the car around, and then as they go, that gives him just enough time to catch up to it, jump on it, catch it with the crowbar arms.
Yeah, he's like, look, we're not doing this thing from the mall again. You're not barely getting away from me by a millimeter. So he yeets out there with that crowbar attachment and hooks into the back of the car. And then I like it when they show that, and then it immediately cuts to a wider shot from behind the car. And it's definitely a dummy that they're dragging behind that thing. You can see it just flopping around behind the vehicle. It's pretty funny.
What I like, that's the first time that we kind of see him separate from a part of his body too, where he shoots the arm and it blows him off.
Right, he breaks it. Yeah.
And I like that they show it independently moving too, like it's trying to get back to him. Again, we're looking pretty far into this, but that would kind of imply that there's a magnetic quality.
Either that or like it's not whatever is in control of this thing. There's not like a centralized CPU, right? The entire thing is programmed, right? If that makes sense. Like there's no little black box down inside there somewhere.
One thing I notice is that she's checking John for injuries. Before she hugs him, before she does anything, she checks him over to see if he's hit or hurt or sliced or anything.
Yeah.
And then that's when he's kind of like pushes her away and he's like, I'm fine. He's more worried about her being worried about him, or like happy to see him, I guess. And it just goes more into that kind of wrecked relationship that they have.
That's probably the scene where I think that Edward Furlong is the most convincing as an actor is when he does start to tear up in the back of the car, and then T-800's like doesn't know what crying is, you know. But it was some pretty convincing acting on his part. I think it was probably the best from the movie.
He did a lot of. He was great in that scene until he started talking. That was the worst part of his performance there. But you could see how upset he was.
Yeah,
and I feel like he was over kicking his coverage as far as his abilities go.
Yeah,
but he was selling it in how upset he was and how kind of disappointed he was that she wasn't just happy to see him and that he was alive and that they made it. And she's just all like, no, you're a commodity. You're the hero of the future. You have to be okay. You're my son second.
Yeah. What I think is one of those, another thing about this movie, right? I've seen it too many times. And so you start asking questions, is that now her treating him as a commodity, right, elicits an emotional response from him, right? And he's not happy about that, right? Yep. It makes him sad. When 6 hours earlier in the day, he's talking to Butnick, like total loser, you know, she tried to blow up like some kind of computer plant or something, total loser, you know. No, was that just an act in front of his friend to make him seem tough, or
I feel like that was both that, but it's also him trying to normalize himself to his friend, where it's like, yeah, she's a total loser. She tries to blow stuff up. Anyway, I don't like her. I'm normal.
Yeah.
Yeah. That's him trying to basically say, I promise if we go hang out, I'm not going to try to blow up a fucking computer factory.
Yeah. So, I can see that.
That's my rationale for it.
Here's the other thing is that if I had a mom in a psych ward that was trying to destroy buildings and whatnot, I probably just wouldn't tell anybody. So maybe that, Johnny boy.
Yeah, he could have just said, my mom's in jail.
Yeah, my mom's in jail. The crazy.
She robbed a bank once. Anyway, let's go to the mall.
Yeah, let's go steal some money.
So from there, the team goes to a random garage to hide out and regroup. A little bit more exposition there. She warms up to the T-800 a little bit.
Kind of.
Completely doesn't trust him yet, but kind of feels him out.
But more than likely, with her again going deep, she's been with all these people that will give her a tactical advantage, right? And she's probably seeing the utility in having a T-800 on her side. So I wouldn't say warming up to the T-800, but realizing the asset that he could be in the fight to come.
Absolutely, yeah. Like seeing him as a weapon, like, well, what better weapon to use against this thing than this thing that terrorized me 10 years ago or whenever it's supposed to be. They head out the next morning and they go to the desert. So they're somewhere in California, I guess.
I've been to certain portions of California that look identical to that.
Yeah, that tracks.
And the Mojave Desert looks exactly like that. Or it could have just been Bakersfield. I don't know.
So they go to a guy named Enrique's to get her stuff.
You're not going to roll the R the way that she did?
Enrique.
Yeah.
Her conversational Spanish is fun.
¿Y tú?
¿Y tú?
¿Y tú? Yeah, it's pretty rough.
Siempre.
So Rico is Enrique is I guess an arms smuggler dealer, maybe just all around. What are those people that build bunkers? Does they have the
doomsday prepper?
Maybe doomsday prepper kind of. Maybe I have no idea.
He's wearing a flak jacket, so I'm assuming he's one of those guys like that.
Okay.
He's got the broken down shell of a helicopter there.
He's got a family that's living in a bus off the grid.
Yeah, he's kind of a tin hat doomsday prepper.
With roughly $1.5 million worth of military munitions down inside of a bunker.
Yeah, he's got Vietnam era M60s, it looked like. He's got not just one M60, by the way. He had a rack.
There was multiple M60s, AKs, MP5s. Arnie finds that M134. Well, I think it's a prop gun that's based off of the M134 minigun. Yeah. I don't think it's the real thing because that would be really unwieldy. Yeah, it's much larger than the one he had.
It definitely wasn't the same one that they used in Predator, because that one had all kinds of Frankenstein parts on it and everything else. But
right.
This one was, I don't know a ton about miniguns, but I know this one seemed a little bit more production-y.
Yeah.
My question is, what was that when they first go down into that hole? Was that a 50 Browning, or what was that giant? It looked like a artillery cannon that was there.
Oh no, yeah, that was the Ma Deuce. That's a Browning M2 50 caliber machine gun.
I couldn't tell from that angle, but I'm like, is that a Ma Deuce, or is that a fucking howitzer? Like, what is that? Because it was such a, just the top of it was.
Well, they had the barrel angled up in the shot, but yeah, it's definitely an M2 Browning M2.
And he takes really the weapon that does the most heavy lifting in this entire movie,
the M79.
The M79 grenade launcher, the breech loader, single shot, M79 thumper. I feel like James Cameron just wanted to have us see him click that thing open and load it a whole lot of times.
That M79 is so cool, though.
Oh yeah, they're neat, but it's a clunky. It's not the most efficient weapon choice, I guess.
Yeah, I don't know. They use it gets used more as a breaching tool than an offensive weapon. Like you were saying, it does the heavy lifting for them, but they breach multiple walls, where Arnie breaches multiple walls while everyone's hiding behind him, which is kind of
it serves its purpose, but it's got the same limitation, I feel like, that the lever action shotgun does, where it looks cool and it's a very effective weapon, but it's very slow because he has to constantly reload it. So
this actually could have been a creative choice. This could have been a choice by the director. And for the most part, the hardware that we see Arnie with is very old and low tech. And that could have been to symbolize him being the old past generation, the older tech, right? With the T-1000 being the shiny brand new one. So pairing him with weapons that have wooden stocks, for example, like the M79 or the wooden grip from that lever action shotgun, it could have been a creative choice.
I think you're onto something there, because the M79 is a Vietnam era weapon.
Yes, it is.
The 1911 is a 100-year-old gun design, and I mean it's called a 1911 for that reason. Mm-hmm. That shotgun was I want to say a 1903 Winchester.
Okay.
So they're giving him kind of, like you said, like old-timey-er weapons. Yeah, I think that's an interesting point.
Until he hangs out the window with that M134 minigun.
This is true, but I feel like there is something to that, though, aesthetically. Interesting.
It could have been something. I don't know. I was just spitballing.
It's a good observation.
Thank you. I appreciate that.
I think I feel like we're both in James Cameron's head in 1990. Sarah has her dream about the nuclear explosion.
What I think is interesting about that scene is that she dreams about herself before the Terminator. I think what's interesting about that dream sequence is that in her dreams, she's depicted as herself before she knew anything about Terminators, right? She still has the waitress fluffy hair like from the first one, and I think she may be wearing her uniform from the diner in that as well. But then then comes the flash from the nuclear blast.
So Sarah wakes up from her dream, decides, I've got to go kill this fucking guy. There's no way I'm going to let this happen.
She's going to blow him away.
So she leaves. She carves no fate on the table, the picnic table, while she's dreaming.
Okay, so first though, before she leaves, she puts on the most early 90s tactical SWAT gear that you could ever imagine. Right, like to include the black ball cap, whatever tactical advantage you get through that, I don't know, but it was it's there. Like in every SWAT team in every movie back then had black ball caps on. Don't know why, but whatever. Yep. And then she has like these sunglasses on that were made specifically for observing nuclear detonations or like welding. Or something. You know what I mean? Like they had the side protectors on there and stuff. I don't know.
On the side,
No idea what that was supposed to be, but whatever. I thought it was cool when I was a kid.
So then she heads out to kill Dyson. He has his Eric Cartman moment where he's like,
We had to go stab it.
and then so the next scene is at Miles Dyson's home,
Mm-hmm.
which he must live next door to Jim Cameron because it's super blue.
Yeah, really, very cool, like stylized architecture in the home. Well, I wouldn't say yuppie, but somebody who's in upper management in the tech industry.
Futurism Art Deco kind of.
Yeah. It's also the same place that you could shoot like an 80s music video inside.
So she attempts to kill Dyson in kind of the sloppiest way ever. Not a very skilled assassin, which I guess is a good thing for her character.
Speaking of her character, we see a little bit of a, I wouldn't say metamorphosis from her, but she fails to kill Miles Dyson. Right, she mag dumps, like two magazines from this Car 15 into the house, and then she's sick of that. She's gonna go in there and get it done, and then, but when you watch her, she pulls that pistol out. She's become the Terminator at that point. Like the expression on her face, the way that she's walking. She has one singular objective in mind, which is to kill Miles Dyson, and then once she has that 45 in his face, you see she has that moment of realization where she gets it too. And she's like, fuck, I've become what I'm trying to destroy. Fantastic writing.
That she realizes, and him saying like, just do whatever, just let them go. And him being very human. It takes that to kind of bring her out of that trance.
Yeah.
And then she just kind of has, and when she puts her hand up and she's like, shh, like it's like she's trying to like wash it away. And it's a beautiful scene.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, absolutely.
It cracks her egg a little bit where she's like, okay, I need to reevaluate everything. And then of course John and T-800 show up and they're like,
Mom, what are you doing? You
can't. Yeah. Which I'm not sure. Did they have Miles Dyson's address already or what? I whatever.
He had detailed files on Miles Dyson.
There you go. Yeah, there you go.
So then he cuts his arm, rips the fake skin off, and shows him the robot arm to make him understand that he's a fucking robot from the future.
There's no more efficient way to show them that you have an endoskeleton.
I mean, you could have just cut a finger off.
Or maybe just taking his jacket off to show one of the 37 bullet holes that are in his back from shielding John Connor in the first half of the movie. I don't know. Maybe shine a flashlight down inside of one of those. Don't know. Whatever.
Yeah, like maybe look in his ear or something.
Yeah. So...
I feel like that was a choice too. I feel like they were like, you know what? He's not going to take this jacket off for the rest of the movie. Have him do something really dramatic. Yeah.
Well, the thing about that jacket is that it repaired itself at some point in time, which is another one of those weird continuity things. But that was Sarah narrating again, as the Terminator explained. Blah 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 blah. Whatever. She speaks again. That's another thing about Sarah Connor in this. Look, I'm gonna make a comparison, right? And I've told this to people before, and they tell me to go fuck myself, right? Matthew McConaughey in Reign of Fire, that dragon movie that he did with Christian Bale, you can't tell me that at least a little bit of that performance was not based off of Sarah Connor from Terminator 2.
I can see that.
I mean, he always has that cigar in his mouth. 9 times out of 10, when you see Sarah Connor, she's using a tobacco product. Well, I wouldn't say 9 times out of 10, but very often you see her utilizing a tobacco product. But the way that they speak, it's almost like the cadence of the speech of both of those characters is extremely similar, and how dedicated to their cause are. And you could see it like in their eyes when they're speaking. The first time I saw that movie, I was like, that's Sarah Connor, but dragons instead of fucking machines.
I buy that. And I don't hate that movie.
Oh, I don't either.
Catches a lot of shit, but that's a beautifully made movie. It's got its problems, but
sure.
And McConaughey is wonderful to watch in that because he's going for it. But yeah, I'd say he probably informed some of his performance from characters like her. Sure. Yeah. So don't go fuck yourself. I think you're onto something.
Thanks.
So Dyson and his family, all his wife, have a change of heart and decide, I'm going to quit Cyberdyne tomorrow. I'm going to destroy all my stuff. Oh, wait, there's a chip and there's an arm.
You son of a bitch.
Yeah. You get it.
So we're getting to the scene where the most endless bullets is about to take place in the entire movie.
The showdown at Cyberdyne.
Yeah, the showdown at Cyberdyne. Man, what a freaking scene, right?
Yeah.
The security guard is just looking at him like he's fucking insane, right? Mr. Dyson.
I love how he doesn't even look up from his Sudoku. He's all like, "No, Mr. Dyson."
Yeah.
Not that they were playing Sudoku in 1991, but so they're just like, "Oh yeah, we'll pull out guns. Like fuck it. Like Plan B. We're just gonna break in." And they tie him up. The other guy comes. He trips the alarm. I feel like there's a long amount of time that goes before the cops show up. If they've got time to wheel in barrels and bring in shit that they brought.
Yeah, with the barrels full of the explosives, the yellow barrels.
Yep.
Where did they come from?
I have that in my notes. And
okay.
For all you chemistry geeks out there, polydichloric euthamol, not a thing. That is a fictional chemical.
You mean midichlorians? What now? What is it?
Polydichloric euthamol.
Okay.
That is the name of the hallucinogenic inhalant drug that they used in the movie Outland with Sean Connery. And James Cameron is he's a friend, or he was friends with Peter Hyams, who directed Outland.
Okay.
So he put that in there as a kind of like an Easter egg callback to Outland.
Gotcha. Okay.
Completely made up chemical, which he gets off the hook a little bit for it being, I'm assuming it was at Cyberdyne, because did they really bring 4 50-gallon drums of explosive chemical with them?
See, that's the thing, is that I thought Cyberdyne was a tech organization.
Right. That's like Apple.
Was there right? Was there a chemistry lab in the building as well that's on a floor below it?
Well,
I don't know. Now I could see Sarah having a ton of C4. Right, from Enrique's bunker, right, and bringing that in, but those barrels were just.
She's got Claymore mines.
Yeah,
she's got. She's got access to stuff, but I don't. That's a stretch for them to say, "Oh yeah, we put 4 big barrels of this shit in here."
Yeah,
she was just going to kill Dyson. She didn't know that they were going to have to blow up Cyberdyne.
Right.
So those chemicals were there.
She was going to assassinate Miles Dyson.
Right.
She had no intention of blowing up Cyberdyne, so she wouldn't have prepared for that.
She didn't know there was an arm and a chip. He had to tell her, and then she's like, "Son of a bitch, I knew it."
Yeah,
but she didn't know it. So those chemicals had to be there at Cyberdyne.
We'll make the movie make sense. We'll establish our own headcanon right now that there's chemical lab on the floor below or something.
It's like Gremlins 2. Like they've got a whole like R&D lab. Like, we're gonna make spider things.
Yeah.
They've got beakers and shit,
yeah, beakers, those type of people. Bunsen burning some bitches.
Just in case we make chips here, but just in case we gotta blow shit up too. So anyway, so they're getting all prepped to destroy the whole place.
Daisy chaining these mystery barrels together, yeah.
And then the cops show up.
Yeah.
All the cops. And of course, John is doing his pen pad magic on getting them into the vault so that they can get the arm and the chip. And then he comes out of that and he's like, "Oh no, not good. Not good. Mom!"
Yeah.
And and then he jaunts over to where they are. So they know that the cops are coming. And then that's when Arnold has his minigun fiesta.
Yeah, kicks that desk through the window very dramatically, comes out there, and then the helicopter pod's like, "Oh fuck, it's a minigun!
He's got a minigun!"
Yeah, and then immediately pulls off, and then he starts opening fire. Now, what I wanted to do in preparation for this podcast today was I looked up the rate of fire from the M134, right, which is roughly 4,000 rounds per minute. Now, what I wanted to do was go back and watch it again and put a timer on the length of time that he's actually firing that weapon and try to get an estimated round count as to what flew out the window during that sequence. But then I started thinking, well, okay, you have a 10-man SWAT team that comes in there with MP5s. They fired at least 2 magazines apiece during that exchange. And then Arnie meets another SWAT team that's like a dozen of them, and they're all mag dumping on. I have no idea how to calculate, just even get a rough estimation of how many times a firearm was fired during that sequence.
Yeah, I don't know if we could ever get a round count for any of this entire scene. It's an effective scene though, because he chews those guys up pretty good.
Yeah, just wrecking those cars.
Also, I don't know if it's before or after that scene, but the T-1000 goes to Dyson's house where he finds them burning all of the stuff in a trash can. I'm assuming the wife and the kid were gone.
I would hope so.
I would hope so, because otherwise they are dead.
They're gone. Yeah.
But he has the police band radio on for some reason. He didn't have it on when he was working. Did he turn that on and they were listening to it before they went to Cyberdyne? And why would that be on?
I don't know.
Doesn't make any sense. And
Yeah,
it's
I'm not sure.
His cop radio. It's a police band radio that's in that house.
Oh, right. It's in the home.
Scanner that's picking up the police chatter and all that. Or maybe it's supposed to be like his radio or something, but
could be his radio. It has the feeling of something that was put in during post.
Yeah.
Right. That audio was put in post to give him a reason to leave the home.
Yeah. He goes to Cyberdyne because that's where they are.
Yeah, the cops are there. All the cops are there.
Dyson and John grab the ARM and the CPU chip from the vault. T800 is back to where they are, and they're like, okay, let's get out of here. And as they're going to leave, Dyson, the SWAT team comes in, and they just start opening fire, and Dyson gets shot multiple times. He's got the detonator in his hand. Yeah, because he ends up with it on the floor, and he knows that he's wasted. He knows that he's done. And he knows what he has to do. And I love that it's unspoken between him and Sarah. I love that they don't have to lay that out, that she just kind of looks at him and they just kind of nod at each other.
He's like, yeah, this is like the 6th time I've been shot today. So
he's having a bad day.
You know, she started it out. I mean, she missed with all the 5.56, but hit him with that 45. That, you know, made him do that corkscrew barrel roll in the house. Yeah. So I mean, you know, after like 3 more rounds hit me, yeah, I'm about ready to give up too. I don't blame Miles.
It's a heroic ending for him.
Sure. It's weird. It's weird to say that it's fitting that the person that would be responsible for all that would be the one to destroy it. But that person right there is not the one that's responsible for anything. He's not himself. He's not the Miles Dyson that created the technology yet. They're just trying to reverse engineer it at this point.
He's probably got a lot of guilt, though, from what he learned earlier in the night.
Right.
So I feel like that probably informs his decision a little bit. And he's not so much like, oh, help me. Oh, like, you guys get out of here. I'll just be okay. Like, he knows what he has to do.
Right.
He knows that's the only shot that they're going to get at it. So
we'll also think that the next vehicle that they get only has room for 3 people in it. So Miles couldn't have come anyway. He's got to die. There's no other choice.
Dyson, they leave, and then the SWAT team comes up and they find Dyson, and he's basically bleeding out and doing his Lamaze. And he gives them just enough warning where he's like, I don't know, much longer, I can hold it.
Yeah.
It's cartoony, but it's a beautifully done, well acted.
Yeah, it's great. He's a great actor.
Yeah, just kind of owns it, and I love when he just runs out of gas and just drops it right on that detonator and blows up half the building, or at least that floor. We've already covered where did they get the fucking chemical.
Yeah.
And let's see. So the T800, John and Sarah, there's some convolution here to how they get out of the building. They do escape. They start sending in the tear gas, and the T800 puts the breather element on. He gives it to Sarah to share with John.
Mm-hmm.
I'll go take care of this. And he goes out and starts kneecapping all of the cops.
Yeah.
Picks up the tear gas launcher and just starts, when he buffoons that one guy with it. And I don't know if you caught this in all of your viewings, but he shoots that guy in the back when he's running, and he goes boom, boom, and he hits him in the back, and the guy lands, and you hear him say, "Oh, that hurts!"
Oh yeah, for sure. It's one of those moments where you kind of expect like a Wilhelm scream.
It's a really quick little thing. I had to rewind it, and he's like, "Oh, it hurts." That's what I would say if you shot me with one of those fucking things. He goes outside. He gets the SWAT van and drives it into the building. They get inside. They leave right as the T-1000 shows up.
Yep.
Drives through the building upstairs somehow.
Yep.
On the motorcycle.
Yeah, that's awesome. I thought that was really cool to look at.
Yeah, it made for a neat thing where he drives the motorcycle out and onto the helicopter.
Yeah.
One of the most iconic scenes in the movie, I think.
I really enjoy how the T-1000 was so concerned with motorcycle safety, because after he acquired the motorcycle, we did see him with a helmet.
He kept the helmet on. Yeah.
They kept the helmet on. You know, we can teach those youngsters motorcycle safety.
Well, I feel like that was to keep up the illusion of being on a motorcycle.
I have no idea, man.
Like, well, this is what they wear when they ride these fucking things, so I'll be a space ball. But when he headbutts his way into that chopper, that was such a just a whoa moment.
Yeah, it's super abyss though.
I feel like that was the moment in the abyss where James Cameron was like, "Oh yeah."
It was like, hold up.
Wait a minute.
Yeah,
I'm making Terminator 2 now.
Yeah, and then we go to so we have our protagonists that are in this armored SWAT van. Sarah throws all the flak jackets she can possibly find on top of John. Thought that was really cool.
Nice touch.
And she goes to engage the T-1000, who's now taking a helicopter. And that pilot, holy hell! Some of the stuff that I don't know if it was guy, girl, I have no idea. But I mean, when they went under the bridge, or when he was chasing them, and then at the last second just pulls up, it just goes straight vertical. Fantastic stunt flying. It's it's stuff that they just would have CGI'd. Yeah, it's stuff that they just would have CGI'd today. Yep. But they did it. Back then, somebody had to do that. Fantastic work. And then so he's shooting out of the helicopter at Sarah, and Sarah's shooting back from the back of the SWAT van. Not to any great effect on either side. Until Arnie decides he's had enough of it.
And then he just like slams on the brakes and fucking flat tires that motherfucker. Yeah. I thought that was that's one of my favorite scenes in the movie too, because it's all like, yeah, keep getting closer.
Yeah.
And he's just like, that whole highway chase is just really, really well done. And it's got multiple stages because he crashes the helicopter, and then immediately, oh, I've got a blowout, and then they roll the van.
Yeah.
And they're like, shit, we gotta change vehicles. So they get into the Gardner truck.
Yeah.
Like a 1990 S10 or whatever it was.
The Gardner. Yeah. When the T-1000 almost winds up running him over on the highway, and he jumps over the median, and he makes this sound. He's like, no! But that's what I'm saying. That's why Miles Dyson had to die. Is because the next vehicle that they got into was just that bench seat they could only fit 3 people into.
That's true. So the T-1000 steals the liquid nitrogen semi.
Yeah, great move.
Gives chase. And that's one of the.
So they're putting along at probably they hit max speed in that thing. You got to remember there's an 800-pound Terminator in the
True.
In the vehicle as well. True. I don't know if he's actually 800 pounds. I just went with T-800. Maybe it's like the AK-47. It's the year it was made. So
he probably doesn't weigh that much, but let's at least say he weighs probably 300 pounds.
Oh, no way, dude! Between 6 and 8. Between 6 and 8.
If he got in any vehicle, though, it would literally be like.
Yeah. So they're at max velocity with that vehicle being weighed down by this possibly 600 to 800 pound piece of machinery in there. T-1000's coming up with the liquid nitrogen, slamming into the back. Right, Arnie's like I had enough of this clown. I had enough of your fucking nonsense. Right, and probably the coolest scene in any action or top 5 coolest scenes in any action movie. Jumps out of the truck, hops on the hood of the 18-wheeler. It just puts that car 15 right against the windshield. It just mag dumps into the T-1000's face, right? 30 rounds. He's taking them, and then jackknifes it, right? And then rides it over. Fantastic. That's that's what action movies should be.
Well, that's one of the most like grab life by the horns moments in any action movie. Fuck all this, the only problem I have with that is the end of that stunt when he flies off the truck and he does like the and does like the whatever, however they did it, it looks super fucking cheesy.
It's bad.
And he's all like,
they added some sparks to it and stuff. Yeah. He looks like Thud Butt from Hook. You remember that kid? The pirate boy that was just tumbling down the stairs. knocking pirates over like bowling pins. That's what it already looked like.
Yep, that's exactly my least favorite stunt in the entire movie.
So I didn't mind that point. That's not the point that I take issue with in that scene. The point that I take issue with is when the T-1000 exits the vehicle and he's now being affected by the liquid nitrogen on the ground. And it's really cool. He loses his foot first, and then he goes down right, and he's limping. But he's been emotionless up to this point. But then, for some reason, once he figures out that he's frozen, he has this look on his face, like he's shocked. And I was like, that's out of character.
I wondered about that too, and I think the reason that he had his mouth open, he needed an excuse to have his mouth open because of all that glitter paint makeup or whatever it was on him.
Right.
To make him look like he was frozen. He probably wasn't able to inhale through his nose. So it was probably safer to have him have his mouth open, or for him to be able to talk with all that shit on him in between filming scenes, like in between takes. That's probably why, because that looked like a functionality kind of thing where he's like, okay, how's this look?
Yeah, I don't.
How about can I wait? Like with all that shit on him, I feel like that would have been a hindrance, but that's just my guess.
It's a good theory. It's a good theory. I don't know, because they had to make the statue of that statue that winds up with T-800. It says "Hasta la vista, hasta lasagna, don't get any on you." And shoots it.
It could have just been a choice. It could have just been like, oh no, he's like, oh, like it's the first time he's ever been frozen, but I don't know.
He has realized his fate.
But it is a little bit, it's noticeable, and it kind of it doesn't ruin the movie or the scene or anything, but it's like,
yeah, I think it's out of character for the T-1000, and it kind of takes me out of it, but whatever. So Arnie shoots him, and he crumbles, it breaks apart like glass, and then they move further into the steel mill.
They realize very fast how hot it is and how it's melting him, and that he can, reacquire himself.
Yeah, so the liquid metal starts to come back together again. Our good guys are moving further into the steel mill to get away from him, and then having problems with the heat themselves. The practical effects from that molten steel, like the way that they did that, fantastic. Like absolutely fantastic.
Oh yeah.
It was like a mixture of like water and sugar with lights underneath it. And then they had guys offset or like out of sight in certain areas that were creating those sparks that were flying and stuff, but the whole thing was just water. But the illusion that they're in a real functional steel mill, great.
I did think it was funny as soon as they crash in there and the one guy just looks without even realizing, knowing what's going on, even knowing what was in that truck. He's like, let's get out of here.
Yeah.
Everyone just leave.
Yeah, no, I would too. I can't blame him.
So the T-800, once he reforms, tells them to go and just run, and he tries to buy them some time and faces off with the T-1000. Basically gets his shit wrecked.
They're just slamming each other around into different things, and then this is the physical confrontation where Arnold, or the T-800, is immobilized because his arm gets caught in a very large cog.
Yeah, that's the most important part of the scene, is that it gets caught in that gear, and he's immobilized, and then the T-1000's like, okay, well, you're taken care of, so now I'm gonna get back to my job.
Mm-hmm.
He crunches his arm off.
Yep.
So that he can keep going, leaving behind a very important part of his body.
Yeah.
That he immediately forgets about.
That everybody forgets about, and they're very careful at the end of the movie to include the old arm.
Uh-huh.
It's not just the CPU chip that has significance. Not just that. It's not just the processor, but the arm has to go too. Well, there's another one like 150 feet away from you. But whatever. That's what I was talking about. Continuity errors, or a continuity error that you and I were probably both thinking about at the end. Was that the one?
Yeah. And there's another thing I'd like to talk about right there, is when he tears his arm off of that, there's time light. There's what I call time lightning, where it's that blue like crackle like that.
Is that what that is?
That's what I've always thought of it as, is like whenever you see that lightning, it's when they go through time. When he gets crushed in the first movie, you see that time light. So I always looked at that as like, okay, so he's getting destroyed, so that's changing events to come or whatever. So when he tears that arm off, it gets left there. It's almost like, okay, that's creating a anomaly in time.
Dude, you may be right, because I thought in the first one when Sarah crushes him in that compactor, that it was just a cheesy 80s effect, right? He's a machine, he runs on electricity, we'll make him bzzz, you know.
Yep.
But yeah,
that's what happens when Terminator explode. But
right, so when he gets crushed, it affects the timeline, because he was supposed to go there and kill her.
Yep.
Maybe there is a timeline where he was successful.
Well, it happens again whenever he gets impaled with the big bar and he gets pinned to the floor. You see the time lightning again when you're supposed to think that he's dead.
Right.
And
or is that an effect when, or is that a residual effect of when something from the future is destroyed
or changed?
Right.
Yeah, I feel like there's significance to the time lightning, because
it's like, yeah, it's kind of like a sonic boom. It's Mother Nature telling you you're doing something I didn't intend you to do. Slow the fuck down. Or like when something like this happens, it's Mother Nature saying, "Hey, quit fucking around with time." You know,
quit
like
screwing with time. Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, like you're not supposed to be here, but like now that happened, so now you're fucking up time again.
Yeah.
Kind of like that episode of Rick and Morty where the meatballs or whatever that protect time, and it's like, man, you done splintered time, you done did it again. I feel like, because the only time you see that lightning is when there's time travel or when they get destroyed.
You're right. Hey, look, I thought it was a cheesy effect. I thought it was a cheesy effect in the first movie, but yeah, I never thought about it like that. I just thought it was a stupid effect for the significance of a robot being damaged or dying. I need to tell my wife that, because she was sitting with me on the couch when I was doing my review in preparation for this. She was asking about the electricity effect, and I was like, babe, I don't know. I have no idea. Like, I think it's just like whatever core power battery he had in him just got penetrated, and now everything's electrified.
It could be that, but
kind of like when the battery goes bad on your Samsung Note 7 and your pocket catches on fire.
So Sarah tries buying John some time to get away by fighting the T-1000, which does not last very long.
Which was an act of folly.
Yes, that was folly.
It was folly, madam.
He pins her to he impales her shoulder and pins her and tries to get her to call for him and to trap John to get him to.
You try to lure him in.
Right. And then the T-800 shows up after he's torn his arm off, kind of comes to the rescue a little bit, allows her to get away, and then he deals with the T-800 again, smashes his head a few times with that steel beam. And Sarah runs away. And then the next thing you hear is Sarah calling for John, and then he shows up, and then it's the T-1000 in disguise.
Right.
And Sarah pops up behind him, and it's like, I'm the real Sarah. Fuck you.
You're not the real Sarah. I'm the real Sarah. I'm the real Sarah. And Linda Hamilton's sister back there, the second set of twins that we get to see in this movie.
Yeah, her identical twin, which I always felt like she looked different in that scene, just a little bit. But they are, about as close as you can get. But that's a really great use of identical twins.
Yeah, for sure.
And so she shotguns the T-1000, one hand pumping that shotgun, and then boom, boom.
That shotgun that she was using, was that a Spaz 12?
Oh, I don't remember. It was either a Spaz or.
So the thing about it is that because when I was a kid, I just called it the Jurassic Park shotgun, right? The one that Muldoon had.
Or that's a Spaz, or is it a Franchi?
I don't know.
It's one of those. It's a futuristic looking shotgun.
Definitely has the stock that folds over the top, right? But the thing about the actual pump on that gun, it's different from a Spaz, right? It looks almost identical to it, but there was almost like wood grain on the pump.
It may have just been like a tactical Mossberg or something like that too, because I don't know.
That's where my firearms ignorance is going to come in. I have no idea what model shotgun that was.
I know. Where's Scott Hughes when we need him? Shotgunning, him right to the edge, and then she runs dry,
making Muldoon proud.
No, fuck, no, like click.
And all you could have just you could have blown him over at that point.
Yeah, she could have literally just bum rushed him and be like, "Fuck you!"
woo!
Yeah.
But then he, does his whole regroup, and then he's like, no, you didn't.
Yeah. Yeah. Little attitude on that, wasn't there?
Little sass there.
Yeah.
So then the T-800 rides up the conveyor belt in the background
Yeah.
and has that one last grenade round and just 40 mil right to the fucking stomach. And I like that there's just that slight delay where it goes in and it's all like thump, and then it's just like whoop, and
Yeah.
he explodios.
Yeah. I don't even know what to describe. It's just
Looks like melted cheese.
yeah, but it's like it's metal, but it's gross to look at the same time. It kind of borderlines body horror a little bit, and it's screeching. A little bit like
The Thing, where it's all like
yeah, and it's screeching at the same time. I think, or does the screeching start when it gets into the lava?
No, he's definitely like
yeah,
like animal noises, and then when he falls into the lava, he's still like
yeah.
And so that's the end of the T-1000, melted into goo.
Yeah,
I kind of hate that they did the whole like, oh, here's another character that I was. Oh, and here's another one. I thought that was a little over dramatic.
Oh, right. Yeah. As he's being melted, the other identities that he's taken on are kind of.
Oh, and by the way, I was this person too, And I thought it looked a little cheesy that they were all kind of like, okay, now I'm gonna roll camera, but you act like you're melting.
Yeah.
They're all just kind of.
That shot in the behind the scenes, would you see it without the effects and stuff? And it's just him in a pool splashing around like a madman. It's kind of funny to watch. You should 10 out of 10 I recommend behind the scenes Terminator 2.
So then they have the big heartfelt goodbye. They throw the arm in, the chip in. Okay, now we're good, except for I've got the chip in my head and I've got to be destroyed.
Yeah, it's a little bit reminiscent of another story where our protagonist had gone on a very long adventure to throw a piece of evil equipment into a fire.
Into the fires of Mount Doom.
Yeah.
And he has Sarah lower him down because he cannot self-terminate.
It fits. I think it's fine.
Yeah, I mean, it adds to the emotional weight of the scene.
Yeah.
So I'm fine with it. Of course, John doesn't want him to go, and they have their, it's a pretty emotional scene, too, for him being a robot and everything, but he's learned how to be more human. And it kind of has them ships passing in the night where Sarah became more like a Terminator than a human there for a while, and then she gets her humanity back, and then he was a Terminator that becomes more human. And seeing it as a 13-year-old, I didn't cry in the theater, but I was still very moved by it.
Oh, for sure. It
did what it was supposed to.
It got an emotional response out of me, for sure. Not like Artex in the Swamps of Sadness, but
it's not.
But
not old Yeller dying or anything.
Yeah, right.
But yeah, it's well done, and I think it's a fitting end to the franchise. Like, I know there's been a lot of other Terminator movies, but you could end it there, and I'm satisfied.
As far as I'm concerned, sir, that is where the canon ends.
Yeah,
Everything
else is like Elseworlds.
I don't recognize anything else besides the Universal Studios little movie experience that they had there, the T2 3D that I went to when I was a kid.
Battle through time.
Yeah, no, but yeah, as Terminator 3, that horrible Christian Bale thing that happened. Genesis, no, thank you. No, I'm good.
I'm good without ever having seen. I saw 3 during a hurricane when I was, and it was either that or some Al Pacino movie, and I was like, I'm gonna watch Terminator.
Yeah, and it ends with him beating the shit out of a motor vehicle, yelling, "I am a Terminator." Yeah,
I don't even remember that film other than the Terminatrix, which I was like, fuck this movie.
Yeah, bad. It should have just ended right there,
I did see Terminator Salvation, and there's parts of that I like, but as a whole, pretty stupid.
The Christian Bale one?
Yeah. So that is the end of our movie. That takes us to the section of the podcast that I like to call bullet points. These are 5 action movie tropes or cliches, and they're things that I notice in movies, and we basically just talk about them. It's kind of my mission to point those out, just to kind of show you that no movie is bulletproof from the bullet points. Bullet point number 1 is the good guy, bad guy switcheroo, which happens between the first movie and this movie, with Arnold being the villain in the first film and being the hero and the savior, or hero and protector in this. It's a trope that I feel like has happened a lot more after this movie as opposed to before it. So it definitely kind of set some new ground there. I don't think it was necessarily a trope when it happened. I thought it was it was kind of fresh at that point.
Yeah, it did seem fresh at the time. So yeah, it fit perfectly for the movie. You know, like we were saying, it's peak Schwarzenegger at that point. Having him as a villain at that point in time in his career probably wouldn't have been like such a good thing to do.
I know at one point they talked about having him play both roles.
That would have been interesting.
And it also, I think it would have been great, but it also would have been really hard because he would have had to go through so much makeup, and so he would have had to have been so much more involved in pretty much every scene of that movie.
Yeah.
I think it just really wasn't tenable. And James Cameron wanted the T-1000 to be kind of an opposite of Schwarzenegger. He wanted him to be intimidating, but not big and muscular and all that. He wanted him to be kind of wiry and
predator,
and,
like a predator cat.
Exactly, like a bullet point number 2, the musical beat for the sake of comedy, and I feel like that definitely happens with the Bad to the Bone scene.
Bad to the Bone had become a trope at that point. We talked about this a little bit before we started recording, but some of the other films you can find that movie in before this one was Christine, Lethal Weapon, Bull Durham, Problem Child. I think that's it. Yeah, I think that's it.
Yeah, and it's a very cliched song at this point because it's almost like you have to wait to use that song until you have a situation where it's like, oh, here's someone putting on sunglasses and, you know, walking through a door or whatever.
Right.
And it's become a cartoon at this point.
Yeah.
I want to make a joke about that.
Right. It's not the song that you would play while like the one percenter type of motorcycle gang is coming down the road. You would play that when the stockbrokers who have really expensive, you know, spotless Harleys go riding on the weekend. You would be making fun of them at that point with that song.
Bullet point number 3 is the unstoppable villain. Obviously, it was done before because that's kind of what the first Terminator, the T-800 in the first Terminator movie was.
For sure.
Slasher films, you know, there's been lots of unstoppable villains. This one had a whole different dynamic because of his ability and how he could be anybody and he could form, you know, the stabbing and different shaped weapons with himself, and he could lay flat on the floor. And it's almost like, you know, having a nightmare where, oh no, I'm being chased by the Terminator, except he has Mr. Fantastic's ability because he could be anywhere. He could be doing anything. Like I don't want to say super powered, but in this universe, that's as super powered as anything that exists.
For sure. And they really drove that sense of like he's coming after you and there's nothing you can do to stop it, right? And with the musical cues for him as well. There's a few times that I have to go back to the soundtrack and look at it, but there's this one piece that sounds like a locomotive. It's and it's just like just like a locomotive, you can't stop it. Like you're gonna get run over by it, or you got to run from it, you know. But one of two things is going to happen, and so I think that really helped drive home that and really imposing feeling you get when he's after them. You know, it's shotguns at point blank aren't doing anything. Pistols at point blank aren't doing anything.
Yep. Shoot him all you want, punch a hole in his head. It doesn't.
Yeah.
Bullet point number 4 is the vehicle that won't start when you need it to the most.
but the vehicle that won't start, but starts at the last possible second.
Yep.
That one.
Just at the moment where you can still get away. In his defense, he was working on that motorcycle and cranking it in the garage, so maybe he was having a problem.
Good point, sir. Very good point, sir. They were working on that.
Devil's advocate, but it's still annoying.
For sure, yeah.
It's not like he's hot wiring it. Bullet point number 5, the endless amount of bullets in this movie. Only one time that I can recall that any bullet discipline is exhibited is when John's in the back seat and they're shooting at the T-1000, and he hands his mom a pistol mag for that 1911, and he tells her, Last one.
Mm-hmm.
That's it. Otherwise,
Yeah.
there's a pocket dimension where they're pulling all of their ammunition from.
I mean, like that's fine. Gunfights are exciting. Yeah, I don't know. That's I don't think that would be a nitpick for me. I'm 100% okay with that.
Not a nitpick, but it's a cliche for sure. I mean, it's
Sure.
the namesake of this podcast, and it's one of the most permeated tropes and cliches in action movies is that we don't think about bullets. That takes all the fun away from it.
Yeah.
But in this movie, I mean, like you said with the minigun, I mean, he's shooting that thing for a good solid 30 seconds to a minute.
He does it. He does it in short bursts.
Yeah,
Right.
true.
But I would probably make a conservative estimate that trigger on that weapon was depressed for probably 45 seconds,
which would make that,
if you're looking at 4,000 rounds per minute,
over 3,000 rounds.
I mean, over 3,000 rounds, yeah, for sure.
Yeah,
but he had that massive backpack on.
True.
That had the ammunition in it. So I don't know. I have no idea. It's a cool action figure though. I'm staring at him right now.
How many rounds in Predator does Max say? Because he when he's talking about when he shoots at the Predator with the minigun, he was like, I drew down on him with a minigun, full pack. And he says something about how many rounds he shot.
Oh yeah, I don't know.
I want to say he says like it's in the hundreds.
Yeah, for sure.
I want to say he says like 500 rounds or something like that.
Which is 500 rounds is going to be cumbersome, but still man portable.
Yeah, I mean, you have a backpack with that's a lot of rounds, but still.
Yeah, 4,000 rounds of freaking 308, 7.62. It's a lot of weight.
That's a lot of weight.
It's a lot of weight. I don't think that's not man portable at that time anymore. But good thing there's a 600 to 700 pound T800 killing machine.
That's true.
Essentially that's a forklift as well.
That's their get out of jail free card with me on that.
Yeah.
But even with the smaller firearms that he has, I feel like his bandolier of 40 millimeter grenades just never depletes. It's always there.
Right. It makes me wonder, because before he decided to jump on the hood of the truck that the T1000 was operating, that had the
left. Yeah.
You're right. They made a point to show you that one round roll into the bed of the truck. Was that the one that he shot him with as he rolled up the conveyor at the end? What was the significance about showing that round fall out of the tube?
I think it was totally that, but it was also a callback to the first movie when Kyle Reese had the pipe bombs.
Oh yeah,
there's that one left, and oh no, I dropped it, but here it is, and it's like settles or whatever.
Yeah,
I feel like that was an homage to that, I guess. But yeah, they made a big point to say like, oh, he's got that one. I've got one more silver dollar. I've got that one more shot. But yeah, I mean, there's a whole lot of shooting in this movie. But,
a lot of firearms being discharged around there.
But I mean, I feel like bang for your buck. I mean,
oh yeah, for sure. It's a movie that still holds up, even with all my gripes and nitpicks and whatever. I still, like we were talking about before we started recording, there's a huge gap in my notes. There's about a 45-minute gap in my notes because I got sucked into the freaking movie again. Yep. And it happens every time I watch this particular movie. I can't say enough about it. It's in my top 5 action for sure. If not my favorite action movie.
It's definitely that. It's definitely, I mean, you can't find a finer action director on this planet than James Cameron. Pound for pound, he's done 4 top tier action. I mean, I'd say top 10 action movies. Mm-hmm. Every decade has those movies that kind of set the tone for the decade. This movie changed action movies forever, ever since in the past 30 years. It also changed all kinds of movies and media in the 90s. It gave birth to that futurism of that dark, high-tech futurism.
The dystopian techno-based extermination kind of scenario. Yeah.
If you look at something like the X-Men, the 90s X-Men cartoon.
For sure.
There's so much.
Well, the Sentinels.
Yeah.
Or they're Terminators, right?
Well, and look at comic books that this influenced. You know, those guns that the Terminators use in the Future War. I mean, Rob Liefeld made a career out of having Cable run around with those kind of guns. And it was so pervasive in everything in sci-fi pop culture all through the 90s. And it was a paradigm shift after this movie came out.
You know, when you have a runaway hit like that, you're going to have imitators.
Yeah.
You know, the same exact thing happened to Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles. If you look at all the different anthropomorphic properties that came out trying to cash in on the TMNT success, like Cowboys of Moo Mesa,
Street Shark,
Barnyard Commandos, Street Shark, SWAT Cats, like Bucky O'Hare, like all of them. But yeah, TMNT set the tone the same way that, you know, Terminator 2 set the tone for action movies going forward. I definitely believe that.
That brings us to the end of the episode. Jeremy, it has been a pleasure. Thank you for joining me on this ride, and tell everybody where they can find you and some of your work, your projects.
Yeah, sure. First of all, thank you for having me on your show. It was really a lot of fun. I try to have conversations very similar to this one with my wife about Terminator, and she's not having it, man. So I appreciate you giving me this outlet. But yeah, look, you can find me on Facebook. I have a Facebook account that's called Authority Figure, first name Authority, last name Figure. You can find me on Instagram at Authority Figure Studio, where you can get the little tiny bits of information that Jason will allow me to leak from the Animal Wars of the Kingdom line there, and also information about the upcoming tabletop combat strategy game that we've developed specifically for that line.
Very cool, man. I look forward to interacting during Iconicon. I don't know if we're going to be on any panels together, but I know you will be a part of it.
Yeah, I don't think so. I'm going on that 80s and 90s soundtrack one, and then I'm doing the 1990 Bobby's 1990 TMNT panel.
Okay.
I think I'm still scheduled for that one. I got to look at the schedule. So
the updated list. Yeah, I get moved around for different things, but yeah, it's going to be a good time. So
yeah, we'll see if I made the cut.
You guys listening at home should check out Iconicon, which will be at the end of June, early July on YouTube. And we have a ton of awesome stuff lined up. So I'm going to go ahead and take us out. And until next time, lock and load, everybody.